Hello and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 15th of December, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Join me today, Zachary Burgess.
Still not winter enough.
And Robert Kemp.
I don't have my winter badge.
Your badge?
Scout Corps.
Like your scout badge?
Scout badge, yeah.
Is it not wintry enough to earn one?
Probably not.
I don't know if it's wintry enough. It's definitely been cold enough some nights, but it hasn't even been all that frosty. Like it's been, we've had a couple of mornings like that, but
it's true.
I don't know if we've even hit winter 1 yet. Like winter 1 has been skipped. I think we're in autumn 2 right now.
Winter 1 on the grading. How many stages of winter are there?
Well, to me, there's normally like an early winter that like hits around early November, right? That's when it's supposed to be suddenly and surprisingly quite cold, right?
Right.
And then that sort of fades away for a bit. Normally, actually, around now. So that's probably why I'm thinking we're in autumn 2 at the moment, and then like it kicks in like some point in January. That's winter 2. That's proper winter. Not your fake winters.
Not your fake pre-Christmas winters.
Nah. All that December snow, it's a lie.
I mean, there's definitely no chance of it right now, is there?
Nope. You might get some wetness, some winter wetness.
A bit of damp.
Yeah. Moist. Merry moistmas.
But sure, we talked about the exact same thing this time last year.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yep.
It's so British.
It's our weather section.
Yeah. In fact, just look up the equivalent time of year in our archive. You probably hear the exact same podcast.
Probably written about it in the blurb.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Is there anything actually different this year?
No.
No. That's the answer to that.
I think this is the same as the last few years. Although I think we may have talked about it a couple of podcasts ago, but in my head, right, like start of November, like bonfire night or whatever, that is supposed to be like one of the coldest freaking times.
Yeah, right, and it's so not. I mean, the days of like wrapping up warm with a scarf and going out to see fireworks on November the 5th, it's like you're going to way overheat.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be rocking up in a t-shirt and probably no coat. Like just not even. I'll be going North England style.
Maybe that's the solution. As climate change happens, we just move further and further north until we're in John O'Groats or something.
Yeah, when we will all gain Newcastle like layers of coping with the cold.
Layers of unlayers.
Yeah, layers of no layers. Yeah,
unlayers.
They've adapted. They've got some extra layer of skin. They've got 4 epidermises.
I think it must have been nurture rather than nature because I was born there, but I never got the adaptation.
Exactly. Yeah.
My inner Geordie never really came to the fore.
Inner Geordie. So with that, how is everyone?
I could give you the part 2 of my dumb Amazon story after last time.
Oh yeah.
Because
the continuing saga.
Well, the end of the saga, as it turns out, because after last time where it was just like, this package isn't going to arrive until mid-January because for some reason we want to put it all in one package. I then got an email that was like, oh, we've split up your package in order to, accelerate the delivery process or whatever. But then there wasn't one of those emails. There was 3 of those emails.
Oh, so all of them got accelerated.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I was like, okay, so they split the package into 3, right? So one of these emails will be like, well, this part is still going to arrive in January or whatever. But no, they all just turned up this week. And it's just like, well, what the fuck was the point of all this then?
Was there some logistics problem where the system automatically like thought, oh, if we get them all in, like it will try and put them all in one place at some point, and that was logistically difficult and thus took time?
Yeah, but then why did they still all be able to get delivered now? It's just like
they come in one go anyway. Or...
Well, not in one package, but they all came on the same day.
Right. So they still. Okay, that's weird.
Yes. It was just like, we're going to split up your package to increase your delivery speed and use more resources for the packaging.
Did I mention this last time? I did actually use Amazon's option to be like, yeah, you can deliver it whenever.
Right.
Like, yeah. I was kind on them because they put a nice little label saying, it's hard for us to deliver well at this time of the year. It's like if you don't care about it, there's this extra little link. There's an extra option. Nice. And it's like, you know what? I've got plenty of time. I'll use that. It's fine.
So I figured it was because of the monitor, like that they'd oversold the stock or whatever during the Black Friday sale.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought they weren't going to get rid. And it possibly could have still been that, like maybe someone cancelled an order or whatever. So then I got bumped up the queue or whatever.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't make sense why they then decide to split into 3 packages anyway.
No.
Because why have not just have sent me all the stuff that wasn't the monitor in the first place?
There's definitely sometimes I've ordered stuff and it's said it split it up. Like, actually, that's most of the time. I order something and it comes from multiple places. Yes. And it says, no, we're delivering this on different days.
Well, when it comes from multiple places, it makes sense. Where it's just like, when it's not all coming directly from the Amazon warehouse or whatever, it's just like some other sub-suppliers ordering it.
A third party.
But in this case, they definitely were all Amazon directly. So that's why I thought it was going to end up in one big package or whatever.
Weird.
But it didn't. So now I have my new monitor, I guess. And the other stuff.
Nice.
We set it up then.
Yes, it's far too big for my desk and in general.
Nice.
What sort of size is it? Same as that?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like 27 or whatever.
Yeah, that's sort of the standard now.
Yeah, so that is the problem. It's just like you can't actually get a small one that's good. You get really tiny shit monitors, which I did briefly consider. I was like, I want like a. It's like I want a little bit. Well, it's mainly because I keep thinking that like at some point I'm going to have to replace my keyboard, and I have my keyboard with my awesome LCD display, and I was like, it might be cool to have like a mini monitor to have extra information on, but then I'd actually have to like make it do that. It wouldn't just be like the keyboard where it's built in.
No, you'd have to have some sort of widget app. Yeah, I mean those little a portable monitor, like ones that can be driven over USB-C.
Yeah,
might be a good option for that because they'd probably stand up, be pretty bezel-less.
Yeah,
right?
I did briefly look at them, but I was just like, this is dumb. And realistically, I haven't all that keyboard app, all the keyboard app LCD screen really does for me is just have the clock on most of the time. I occasionally use the timer, but now there's just a Windows app to do that.
I mean, had I thought about it ahead of time, I could have potentially put one of those window mirroring services on an old iPad or something I've got, ones that I can't really use anymore. But if I had the app, I could still potentially run it as a screen.
Actually, now that I think about it, it's not even a Windows app, it's a Steam. Like, the Steam overlay has all those features in now. Like, it has a countdown clock / timer.
For streaming.
It has notes, so you can just write notes specific to each game.
And those
you can
be
pin them as
offloaded
an overlay as well, so they can be semi-transparent over the game.
Oh, and those can those be offloaded to a second screen?
Probably.
Because that would be really
I don't know, actually, because you kind of have to open the overlay to see them.
Right.
Maybe if you pinned the window but then put it onto the second screen, it would just appear there.
That'd be pretty neat.
Because I think you can affect the transparency as well, so you could probably just make it not transparent and then just pin it off to the second screen, probably. Maybe.
You've seen those tools like some speedrunners use where they are the tool has been coded to the game. And so when you hit certain milestones in the run, it automatically checkpoints you. And sort of shows it lap times and stuff like that. That stuff's really cool.
I mean, I don't know. Not necessarily all of those are automated, though.
No, I wouldn't say all of them are, but no, there are definitely some that are. And it's those are really neat. Anyway, speedrunning.
I've got a very first world problem, monitor problem, in that, I have this 38-inch ultra, I guess that counts as ultra wide. Sure. Anyway, monitor, wider than the typical 27
Wider than wide.
Which is really, really good. And I got it through work because it would have been quite expensive.
Tax write-off.
Yeah, basically. And it was it was actually a pandemic budget thing for people who had to work from home for the first time. It's I'm already set up. I'll just use it all for a nice monitor. Anyway, so that's worked well. And now I find a normal monitor quite cramped for working. Obviously fine for games and stuff, but quite cramped for working. But the problem now is, the very first world problem is they've had really shitty monitors in my company's office for years, and they're finally replacing them, or at least half of them. They now it's alternated. Every other one is now a good one. But the new ones they've got are normal size. They're 27-inch, normal aspect ratio.
Yeah.
But they're 4K, and Oh, the text looks so nice.
I know.
Like, because
I'm
it's basically double the
envious.
dot pitch, basically. They're like really high res.
I'm so envious because we've talked about this before, but my what is essentially a hot desk when I have to go to the office has terrible 1080 screens, and it's
I
like
think we talked about this literally in the last podcast when I was talking about ordering a new one.
Oh,
we may have had this
was it
exact same conversation.
Was it on the podcast? Oh, okay. In which case, yeah, no, shut up, Rob. So how do you think of those frames, yo?
Well, it doesn't seem to screen tear any longer now I have G-Sync, so like that solved the one problem I cared about, I guess.
And it's got proper G-Sync, or is it one of those G-Sync compatible?
Well, the Amazon page or whatever claimed it had G-Sync, but it's got a sticker on it that just says G-Sync compatible. And the NVIDIA thing doesn't even seem to know.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's clearly. It has a thing that's. I don't really understand the menu in the G-Sync thing in the NVIDIA panel because it's like there's a toggle at the top for like turning it on entirely, but then there's a separate button further down for like turning it on for this monitor or something. And I'm like, what is the difference between these buttons?
Really? Oh, interesting. I don't think I see that one on my setup.
No, I'll have to look at your one to see if it is different because I don't remember it from when I've seen it on your computer either.
Because only one of my monitors is G-Sync compatible. And it is only compatible. It's not like full on the chips are in the screen type job.
Yeah.
Not G-Sync alternate, I think they call that now. Yeah, but I don't remember that option. It gives me the slightly weird option, which I think is kind of important, where you can pick whether it works for windowed apps well as. Because running it in windowed and not full screen can actually cause some weird artifacting. I've noticed in the past. It hasn't been so bad recently, but when I first started using it, you could notice the sort of what do they call it? I think Digital Foundry pick up on it, and it's like VRR brightness problems, where if it holds on a frame for longer than because of VRR, right? If it has to hold a frame for slightly longer than usual, that frame can appear brighter to your eye because of the way the screen works.
Right.
And so I think I was noticing that
so the brightness essentially varies sort of.
And I think like monitors do have some stuff in there to try and cater for that when they see it happen, but they can't necessarily know ahead of time that that's going to happen.
I mean, that's the other thing that I've been going through with this monitor. It's just like going into the monitor options and being like, what are all these weird settings? I have no idea what any of this means. I'll just fiddle around with it until it looks kind of right, I guess.
Like, is your monitor got like all these like this one's got some absolutely bizarre like gaming modes on it that like just really futs with the color in weird and mysterious ways. There's one mode where you can just put a crosshair on the screen.
I mean, that's probably for like motion sickness, right? I guess.
I guess, yeah. They are rubbish. I also don't understand why I have to go into in order to get 165 hertz out of this thing instead of 144. You have to go into the menu option and specifically turn on overclocking. And then for some reason 165 turns up in the list that it supports. Like, why sell it to me as a 165 monitor if I have to actually like...
The option is there somewhere.
Yeah.
Have you had any issues? Because that's what happened with my monitor when you came over. I noticed that I was on 120 instead of 144, which is the maximum for this monitor. And I was like, why didn't I have it on 144? And I switched it. And then... I started having problems. And I'd forgotten what I'd changed. So it took me a while to work out.
Really?
Now I need to put it back to 120. Yeah.
Because I've never had a problem with the 165 mode on
it's probably it could be Mac or it could be the Mac or the operating system or something.
Sure.
It's probably fine on Windows, but yeah. Or it could be the Thunderbolt or whatever I'm using.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the monitor, but I don't.
Yeah,
sure
you could be right. Maybe there is some sort of technical limitation above 144 that makes it less compatible.
I think it must depend. Like, surely, a better monitor could probably do it better or whatever.
Maybe, yeah. I wish my TV was more compatible with shit. Because it and the Steam Deck dock fight every now and then.
Right, they have a fight.
It's a pain in the ass.
I haven't actually tried turning on the switch to see how it goes through this. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. It's still just an HDMI port.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. But I even though there's not enough space for it on my desk, I still have the other monitor there as my second monitor now. But it's just like
in there.
It's like my desk is too shallow, so the new monitor is already kind of a bit too close. But but then also the desk is not wide enough to fit two widescreen monitors next to each other, so the other monitor like kind of overlaps by like an inch behind it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's like, this is not. I was trying, like, originally I was like, oh, I could just turn that other monitor vertical and have that be a vertical monitor, but I don't have that old monitor doesn't have the mounting for that.
Right. Oh, well, it doesn't have the
because it's not actually like, it's just like a straight plastic pole that's wedged in the back of it. It's not actually
it doesn't have a Visa plate.
Doesn't have an actual attachment for anything advanced.
Yeah, I was about to suggest, like, you can get the like monitor like replaced, not a full on arm like this one here, but like you can just get like sticks that you mount to the back of the desk, and the monitor just mounts straight to the stick. And it's a little bit more space saving than having like the full on monitor stand there.
I'm well overdue a new desk anyway, if I can be bothered to deal with that.
Yeah, I was thinking about myself the other. That's why I like I don't know, just noticing one of the like. That's why I put an extra leg under my desk, because I did start to notice it bending a little more with this like IKEA setup, and it's like, if I ever have to replace, like, I can replace this tabletop super easy. That's not a problem, but it's like, it is a problem because it's like getting all the stuff on and off of it. Like the actual physical job of replacing it like isn't too bad, but it's just the actual moving of stuff.
Yeah, I did take the opportunity while I was putting the new monitor in to get all the stuff off my desk entirely, like, at least the stuff that's on the top of the desk, not anything in the drawers or anything. That's all still crap. But I was like, I can finally look at everything that's on the top of my desk and be like, do I need this? It's like, well, yeah, I pretty much do all need this. It's just also get rid of all the dust, and also get rid of the speakers that don't work any longer, I guess. Finally unwind them from the back of the desk area.
That seems like a good idea.
So I cleared all that out. And I did also, in this Amazon package, one of the other things that was in it was like, I bought basically a backup mouse. Just in case. It's kind of the same. I was originally just going to buy the exact same mouse I already have again, because that was actually still on Black Friday sale. I was like, oh, it's cheap, I can just buy a copy of it. But then I was like, well, I might, if it's on Black Friday sale anyway, I might as well buy the next one up that's also on sale.
Nah, right, yeah.
So now I've got this theoretically slightly better mouse that I'm not going to use until the current one breaks.
Nice. You'll treat yourself when
yeah. Just as a backup. It's mainly because the one that I'm currently using, like, the cable started stripping, kind of.
Oh.
Like, I think it's like pulled out of the body of the mouse, like the tension release or whatever inside the body didn't work correctly or whatever, so you can see like exposed wrapping or whatever the USB cables are wrapped in, that sort of silvery fibers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the shield.
Yeah, so I was like, well, that's bad. I should probably keep an eye on that. So I've just wrapped some tape around it for now, and it's like, well, if this breaks, I've got this backup mouse now. I
mean, in most cases, that's probably actually going to be fine.
Yeah, probably. Unless I like pull on it again and it gets worse. If the strain relief has already been used up, basically, by whatever happened to it the first time.
So I've got a slight mouse thing I need to figure out as well at the moment, because, like, okay, one, my work mouse is this lovely, okay, it looks skanky now because it's had my hand all over it for about a decade, but this Logitech MX, like, it's so comfortable for work use, but it's not quite good enough for gaming, which is why I've got a Razer mouse for my PC. But I think the battery charging mechanism in this is starting to go.
Right.
Because it seems to be failing to charge whatever battery I put in it. So the whole wireless thing about it has kind of gone a bit awry. It's fine if I plug it in. So I might have to replace that. And they do newer versions of this, so maybe that's the option. But then my Razer mouse, I'm pretty certain, is another case of it's not quite behaving with this machine's USB. Like,
back to that again.
Yeah, it seems to be like USB problems seems to be something that plagues me with my self-build PCs. This one hasn't been so bad, but Ice, my previous build, was
a disaster.
Yeah, the USB never really worked very, very well on it. It was, and it's like, why? The USB is like such a fundamental part of the damn motherboard. Why did that never? Yeah, it was never great. But anyway, there's like this mount. Okay, it's one of those Razer mice. So because it's Razer, of course, it's got RGB in it and stuff like that. And I think that's probably where the problem starts, because it probably has to draw more power to work.
Right.
But when connected to this PC, I think I've started noticing the mouse just not disconnect completely, but just have odd pauses.
Well, I think I've noticed that when we've been recording videos here.
Oh, really?
When trying to use your mouse. It's like, this feels like there's something going on.
It's weird. So I've plugged this Razer mouse into my work PC, and I actually did it through the hub as well, through the USB hub rather than directly, and had no problems at all for the entire time I had it plugged in, until I then turned this on, and then it didn't work at all through the hub. So yeah, I think that there's something weird about this PC's USB. Again, like maybe it's just not delivering enough power. I really don't know.
So then I like, that's definitely happened in a video, and I was trying to remember which video it might have been recently that we recorded.
Probably Shapes. That was the last one we did.
Oh yeah, I think it was Shapes, because I remember it being like when I was trying to drag the belts out, occasionally it would go wrong, and then I was like oh, you can just use the undo, but it's like it's actually your mouse. Yeah. If you see that happening in that video, that's because of Rob's mouse.
It could well be, or the mouse doesn't get on with this Razer branded mat.
That would be real bad.
It would be really confusing, wouldn't it? The Razer mouse doesn't work on their own goddamn mouse mat. Oh boy.
And then the rest of the package was, well, one of the other major things in this Amazon package was I got a proper dehumidifier.
Oh, that's probably quite nice.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of, in theory. Again, it's one of those things where you get it and it's like, it remains to be seen whether this is going to make any difference to my life. But, it's doing the thing it says it does. Yeah. The water comes out.
You can see the little tank or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's clearly water coming out of this.
And I've been...
Put that on the plant.
Yeah, maybe. It has like a automatic setting for like choose the humidity level or whatever. But I've just been running it at maximum because I'm like, I bet this room is absolutely full of like latent moisture, so I'll just run it as hard as it will go, just to pull out as much as I can for at least a week or so.
Okay.
Like just seal it off, shut the windows, close every vent, close the door.
Yeah,
suck it dry.
Because it's like, it's hard, it's one of those things where you can never like tell, because like, how does humidity even work? So I haven't been running it during the night. So obviously while I'm sleeping, or whatever.
Is it aren't those things normally quite noisy?
Fucking loud, yeah. but so I haven't been running it while I've been sleeping.
Are they usually massive as well?
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's got little wheels on it, so you can shove it around.
Okay,
it's kind of nice.
It goes where your feet go under your desk, does it?
No, it sits in the middle of the room, or as much in the middle of the room as it can in my tiny amount of floor space in that tiny room. It's like, keep it 30 centimeters away from any obstruction. It's like, good luck.
Yeah, not happening, bro.
You'll just have to go as much away from obstructions as it can. But yeah,
just put it on your bed.
You probably could. But I've been running it as hard as it can, because it's like, people say that you're like 50% is where you're meant to be, more or less. Relative humidity, supposedly. Huh. But I'm like, no, I want to push this as hard as I can, just to get all the moisture out of here, and then we can see about maybe getting to a regular level. So I've set it down to like its lowest, which is like 30. But it's never reached that yet. Like on the first couple of days, it eventually, over like the entire course of the day, it would get down to like 40 and then level off. And it's now starting to dip below 40.
That's probably atmospheric leakage, right? Stopping it from...
Maybe, but it's kind of, it's impossible to tell. Like, the amount of moisture it's putting out hasn't gone down significantly over the first 3 or 4 days I've been running it like that. So that's what I'm waiting for, like, to see if the amount of moisture it's putting out is going to tail off. That'll be an indication that it's actually pulled everything it can out of the backlog of that room.
So is that more or less effective than air conditioning, right? Because air conditioning, the air that pumps out is pretty lacking in humidity,
well,
right?
It depends. Dry, yeah. It depends how the air conditioner deals with the moisture. Because obviously that's why air conditioners have like the like frost clearing cycle and all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess I mean like a proper AC, not like these like weird like moisture dependent ones. Like the
that's the
little
ones
people get. Yeah.
But I mean, this thing is just basically, it's a fan and a refrigerator, basically. You can tell it's got the refrigeration loop in it because it's on wheels. When you turn it on, the fan starts up first, so it starts blowing air through. And then when it turns on the compressor for the refrigeration loop, the whole thing like jiggles slightly because of the torque.
I was going to ask, is a proper compressed refrigeration unit?
So I'm like, yeah, that's obviously how that works. It just like, it makes a cool set of metal or whatever inside it and the water drips off it. It's like, that's just how those work. But yeah, I like... that also means that it makes the room hot as well.
Right, yeah. So what is the health benefit you're expecting to get from this?
Well, the main
just to
thing-
remove like general room clamminess.
Well, yeah,
or-
and also, there has been some, condensation on the windows and mold is starting to appear, and I'm just like, well, that's clearly moisture, so let's just try and get rid of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably more your house needs sorting thing,
Well, it's
or your windows need resealing.
Well, maybe one of them has like moisture in between the panels, which is that's more of a problem.
Yeah, I mean that's fixable, but that shouldn't cause the moisture inside. Really.
Well, no, unless it's depending on which way it's leaking, I guess. But I'm pretty sure it's just because this room is it's actually like too well sealed because the room that I'm in is essentially an extension to the original house. All four walls of this room are essentially external walls.
Right, so they're all
so
insulated.
it's super insulating, which is why it gets so fucking hot in there just from like my PC running will heat that room up. I barely have to have the radiators on. And now with this extra heat from the dehumidifier, it's like, wow, it's way too hot in here. But yeah, I think that's the main problem. It's too well sealed, so it just collects all the heat and moisture in there. And also, I don't open the windows much.
If I had a boatload of spare cash, I'm still tempted to put like an AC unit on the side of this room.
I mean, it's the future of Britain.
Yeah.
We'll eventually one day
We will be
the
Americans.
aircon will be coming.
We'll be American. Get central air.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far this thing has pulled out like 1.5 liters of liquid every day.
Wow.
So I'm waiting for that to start going down.
That's loads.
Yep, that's what I was saying
Wow.
about how it seems like there's probably a lot of backed up moisture in here.
I mean, well, how do you know it's the room and not leakage? Like just like it coming.
Well,
Like
because
it's
there
just
isn't-
generally what the humidity of the country is right now. Like,
Well, I mean, as I said, like I usually have all my windows. I mean, it's the winter also, so naturally all my windows are closed. But also, like the door, there's no draft coming through that, and this room is so well sealed anyway, which is why it keeps the heat in so good.
that's bonkers high though.
Yes, I mean that's what I was saying about how I was starting to be suspicious about mold and condensation.
Yeah.
It's just like there might be a lot of moisture in here, or alternatively, that's just how much moisture I put out on a daily basis.
Well, yeah.
Again, that's why I've got to continue this experiment for a little while longer to see what actually happens.
Possibly more so now the room's so hot.
Well, yeah, that is the trouble.
You have to drink the water it puts out. It's like, is this
Oh,
salty?
Oh. 1.5 liters of water that he's sweated out.
Oh, I'm so eco-friendly. I'm just recycling in here.
It's all the evaporation coming off the cups of tea that I have sitting on my desk. Like, whenever I forget to drink it too fast, and it just sucks it all away.
The Dune still suit situation.
So yes, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, it's going to need a few more days at least before I can make any confirmation one way or the other before any changes occur.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
I'm intrigued.
It's probably too big for how small my room is. I feel like they sent me the wrong one. I'm fairly certain I ordered a 12 litre, but it's a 20 litre.
Oh wow, that is big.
Well, I think those are as big as they regularly go.
Okay,
But it's only like, I mean, it's probably smaller than my PC tower.
okay,
Just about.
still pretty chunky.
Yeah.
I've only ever had experience in a house of the proper massive industrial units, like when
After flooding or whatever.
literally after flooding.
When was that?
It was like 2 houses ago, so like well over a decade at this point, and where we had a plumbing issue in the house.
Oh,
and it
yeah,
just basically
plumbing issue.
flooded all of downstairs. And so a couple of big dehumidifier units were brought in.
I don't know if this is an inelegant question, but are you on a floodplain, Rob? Like, the river's not very far away from where you are,
I, mean,
is it?
I think we've talked about this before, but like for insurance purposes, actually no.
No.
I'm not
Okay.
in a flood area.
You're just barely
You're
uphill.
right then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
I mean, it came up like during the initial surveys and stuff when we were buying this place that that it was close, and they were just double checking the figures and the all the rulings on how they figure that out. And they were said, nope, it's okay.
They might not have yet updated their numbers for climate change or whatever.
Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, presumably my house isn't much higher or lower than here. It's just that from my house, you have the railway in between the river and the town. You could probably act as a fairly decent flood barrier.
Yeah. It's like a levee.
Yeah, you're not wrong though. We're really not far at all, and it's not super elevated from there. But no, apparently we're okay. So they say. So they tell us.
So they say. Okay. So you're not going to be breaking out the giant industrial dehumidifiers anytime soon.
I mean, it hasn't happened yet. All the closest we've had to flooding nearby has been Anglian water caused. So
yes, well, and the mill, obviously that flooded.
Oh yeah, but that's again, and when it has flooded, there's definitely been hot spots near us, but not. There's very clearly some distance between where that's gone wrong and us. So there must be bits lower than where we are, right?
Yeah.
I've not been very well again. Subject change.
I felt ill last night. I was like, I thought I might throw up last night, but I didn't.
Yeah, so Gnome and I went through the same pattern that we did, I think, before last podcast. No. That Gnome had a bad day, then I had a bad day following her. And
Miles escaped again.
Well, I'm not sure he did.
Oh, okay.
He had some very, let's say, noisy days down below. But he wasn't that bad, right? He wasn't that bad, not compared to us, anyway. So yeah, not yet. Well, most of yesterday was pretty terrible. I'm fine today. Like that's the weird thing about it. Just like last time, I'm fine again.
It's because your body makes an extra effort to prepare for pizza. It's like, gotta get cleared for this pizza.
Purge now. But it was like bad enough this time that I think I actually got dehydrated enough that I went into cramp mode.
Right.
And so the combination of both being dehydrated and quite ill and cramping multiple times in the worst place for me, which is the calf. Like a cramp in your calf is the single most painful thing I think I've ever experienced. And I get them a lot. And like it's Oof. If you ever want to hear me squeal like a pig in the middle of the night, and not like Deliverance, that's what'll do it. I literally have to. There's only one way I can deal with it, which is like sort of do a leg stretch against a wall or against a windowsill. Like I have to put that leg that's cramping straight behind me and sort of lean into it, stretching out the calf. That is the only way I can deal with it. And it, I don't know if you've ever had cramp. Like the onset of it is like instant. Like it's not. There's no real warning, particularly. It's just like, boom, here you go. And it is the most painful thing. So I had that multiple times over the course of Friday night. Once of which happened whilst I was on the can. And that is so much worse because it's like now I've got a choice.
Oh no!
Now I've got a choice. I either have to go through this pain or potentially make a horrific mess.
Oh no!
So that happened once, and it's like this is brand new, and I don't quite know what to do. So I kind of like half-assed both. To be honest, and like I sat there in like unbelievable, excruciating pain until I was like, okay, it's safe, and then got up and dealt with the cramp, and then, and like I swear, like calf cramps are so strange because for me at least, they feel like my entire body's energy output suddenly directs into that leg, trying to tear itself apart.
Trying to make it worse, yeah.
So in the process of me dealing with that, I feel so drained, like as a result of that instantly. So here's me having just jumped off a loo, dealing with cramp, and also now going through what feels like an absolute massive sugar energy crash. Just, it was bad. It was really, really bad. But I'm fine now.
You have recovered.
I've recovered. I would say, like, also this and the last episode have. It's like I've never known vomiting as violent as that. It's just like someone being murdered. Like that's what it sounded like. Just unbelievable. So whatever's going around this year, twice.
And hopefully I'll continue to miss it both times.
Yeah.
Just barely.
Oh, yeah, it was ridiculous. Anyway, happy holidays, everyone.
Well, I haven't, for some reason, I seem to be that's almost my Christmas tradition is frying up at this point. It's only happened twice, but
Nice.
both, basically the last 2 times I've ever thrown up have both been around December. Obviously, the last time was when I went to hospital.
Yeah.
But then the time before that was some dodgy Christmas dinner shit happened, and then threw up off that.
Right. So it was Christmas food related at least once.
I think we had duck that year, and that was the problem. That did not go well.
You think was that just you?
I don't remember whether that was just me on that one.
If you hadn't had much duck before, then it's entirely possible you just weren't into it. Your gut was just like, I'm not feeling this right now.
But yeah, like I said, last night I felt iffy, and I was like, I'm going to have a bucket in the room when I go to bed just in case, but it was fine. Hasn't happened yet. Still got at least 20 more days to see what happens before we're out of the Christmas period.
So you don't have an advent calendar, you have a poop countdown.
You've got the bucket so you can throw up all the liquid in there, but the dehumidifier is pulling it out of you ahead of time.
So, wouldn't want to leave that bucket in the room with the dehumidifier on, probably.
No.
Turns out the human body can hold a lot of liquid.
70% of it.
Yeah. And it could also get rid of a lot of that liquid. Should it so choose?
So this is a podcast about video games.
Yeah, we've somehow we've got this far without even hinting at it. I suppose we talked a little bit about monitors.
Yeah, that's sort of related.
Yeah, we sort of did it.
But this time there's a raft of news, right? Because I guess it was the Game Awards. Is that right? Is that something to talk about? TGA and you can tell me about it because I didn't watch it. So that was
I mean, it was long. There was 4 hours of content. Which was conveniently what I could do whilst feeling very ill.
Oh, perfect.
So I could watch it all. I have done that, so you don't have to. And I've picked out there's not a lot else going on in the world of news outside of this, so this is TGA only. But yeah, I've picked out a whole bunch of game announcements.
Well, let me throw in one that wasn't in the TGA, I don't think, but is related. It's the only other bit of news I've seen, and it's also a game announcement, but they're finally making Space Engineers 2.
Oh, right.
They're actually making a sequel to that after all this time, which looks exactly the same, except it's slightly more fancy with the building. You can do more detailed stuff in. And apparently it's quite a significant, well, I guess it would be at this point, but apparently it's quite a significant improvement to their engine. The voxel terrain for the asteroids is supposedly way more advanced, and the actual block building part of it is also more advanced, where it doesn't because in normal Space Engineers, there's basically, you have the large grid where the blocks are a meter big, and you have the small grid where the blocks are a quarter of a meter, but those two systems don't interact. It's you're either building a large grid ship or a small grid ship.
Interesting. So you can't put small grid stuff onto a big grid.
Not originally, you couldn't at all, but then in later patches they introduced some way to interface them. You can build a hinge which has one side of it is a large grid and one side of it is a small grid, so you can sort of attach two different scales together.
Weird.
In some ways.
Seems surprising that just wasn't easy to do, right? Because of the quartering.
Well, I mean, that was sort of that was the obvious limitation of that engine at the time. But now in this new engine, it looks like they've totally gone past that, and you can just do everything. All the blocks are completely made of in basically almost cube voxels, I suppose.
I wonder if that's because that's just the core grid size is actually now the smaller size, right? The engine is built on that, and then so big stuff isn't a problem.
Yeah, so I mean that may have been why it was like that in the original engine, because then you're only simulating 1 meter blocks basically when you're building a big ship.
Because that was going to be my next question. It's games like Space Engineers and things like that. The physics and the interaction of the blocks is kind of the critical thing to get right.
And it does look like They haven't yet shown the classic Space Engineers demonstration of ships running into each other, which was really what was kind of impressive about the original game's engine at the time, was like the way the blocks would like crumple and like how the impacts felt quite weighty. But they did, in one of the trailers for the new one, they have shown like basically a sort of dev tool laser where they're just like shooting damage basically at the blocks, and they like break apart in quite cool ways. Like even blocks that would be like functionally speaking one block, like a solar panel or whatever, you can like slice bits of it off essentially.
Right, yeah.
So that looks pretty cool. Who knows how that's going to affect the gameplay, of course, because that might be kind of awkward to repair when you've got these half blocks cut off or whatever.
Maybe you have to just recycle them and get rid and get some materials for them.
But apart from that, from what they've shown so far, it looks exactly like Space Engineers. It's even the same like Space Engineer dude model as well.
That's kind of the thing, though, isn't it? Even though you don't see it in single player most of the time, the guy, right, like, is how a lot of these games identify themselves. Yeah.
But you can it does if you're not looking at it from the point of like, obviously this is a huge engine upgrade, it does look like it's basically exactly the same. And then hopefully they'll do they'll make it worthwhile apart from it just being an engine upgrade. Put some more other tech in there.
Yeah.
Maybe improvements to like the inventory system and how all that worked.
Was Space Engineers one of those games where the physics engine is impressive but starts to fall apart in multiplayer? Because multiplayer's always been a big deal with Space Engineers.
Yeah, I mean, it did have problems, but I mean, there are other problems with that engine where it just had limits anyway. Like the main one was always the top speed limit, where it's like, no, you couldn't travel faster than like 115 meters per second because the engine just didn't allow it, right? Because of the way the physics was calculated or whatever,
or a chunk loading thing, or
well, yeah, maybe. But then in multiplayer, it was pretty functional in multiplayer. It never really had that many problems. It was just that as soon as it had to calculate any physics, even in single player, it just got laggy. So obviously multiplayer was just add that, but more because it was doing it for multiple people.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if they've made it just the engine just run better as well, that'll make it better.
Oh, that'd be too much of a problem for you and your new shiny machine.
Well, no, I can still, at this point, I can still brute force it. So that was that. What about the TGAs? What was announced there?
Okay, so in the order in which they were revealed, there was a trailer that looked a little bit anime at first, and then I sort of clocked pretty early on that there's like, that guy looks like Ryu Hayabusa.
The one ninja character.
The one ninja everyone knows. It's like, this is probably a Ninja Gaiden game. And then they showed some 2D footage, like some like pixel art 2D, and I'm like, oh, hang on, did I get that wrong? Is this like Sega said they were going to make a Shinobi game, right? Is this that? No. It is a Ninja Gaiden game. It was Ryu Hayabusa, but you're not playing as Ryu. You're playing as the other guy. Like, I don't think it's even Hayate from Dead or Alive or anything like that. He's normally like associated with him. It's some other guy. But yeah, they're making a new 2D Ninja Gaiden game. I think it was called Rebound. I think it looked okay. It looked good. 2D pixel art Ninja Gaiden. It's probably nice. I think if you've played Dead Cells, it looked a bit like that. Or it looks like how Dead Cells looks to me, anyway. So yeah, that looks cool. In what is possibly the weirdest announcement of the night, are you aware, Dan, of that secret level show on Amazon Prime came out?
Right.
About a week ago, something, or a few days ago, something like that. To a middling reception, I think it's fair to say. I don't think they. For some background, this is this is Blur Studios' new anthology project, following on from Love, Death and Robots. And this follows a very similar format. Even like the intros and the titles and how they present each episode is incredibly similar to Love, Death, Robots. But obviously everything here is video game related. And the biggest criticism people are throwing at it is that these feel like trailers or in-game cutscenes, not unique stories within those game worlds. And I've seen the first two episodes, which are a Dungeons and Dragons episode and Sifu. And And yeah, I think I agree with that perspective so far. It's like they're very well made. I can't take that away from them. These animation studios that they get in to do this are incredible. But the D&D one does feel like it's a trailer for a D&D game, with no real particular weight to the narrative. And the Sifu one is basically the game Sifu, right? There is nothing like it is what it is. A guy fights some dudes, dies, get older, comes back to life, fights some dudes, gets older, and that's all the episode is. It looks great, and it's animated fantastically, but like there's nothing
not satisfying as a story.
No, absolutely not. So, but one of the weirdest things to come out, and I haven't watched it yet, is apparently a horror take on Pac-Man.
Okay.
They've taken a really bizarre route with one of the like they really went wild apparently with this. They were like, "What on earth do we do with Pac-Man?" So they made like Pac-Man into a horror character. And I think the story goes like this: that they like this, not the story of the episode, but I think the story goes that they were trying to come up with this. They had this idea for doing something weird with Pac-Man. They pitched it to Bandai Namco, who said, "Yeah, you know what? We really like that. Go with it." The episode has been made and came out. In the meantime, Bandai Namco have made a game out of that.
Out of
this weird horror Pac-Man idea, they've then gone on to make Shadow Labyrinth at the same time, which appears to be a bit, again, like Ninja Gaiden, like a 2D hack and slashy, maybe Metroidvania-y thing, with a small Pac-Man following you around that seems to grow and eat stuff and gets increasingly nasty.
Like a Pokemon type thing.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it ended with the tagline, "Consume darkness," which I just thought was hilarious.
Right.
So yeah, get your broody, weird Pac-Man game. Is now the age of like people doing dark, gritty versions of happy franchises, but making them good, potentially. Like when that Bomberman came out.
I mean, I think that's just been a thing that video games have always done, right?
Sure, but they've universally been bad, right? Like
maybe. I mean, it's not that it's been a sort of constant trickle, so maybe we're seeing a slightly larger spike in it.
Yeah, maybe an uptick.
There was plenty of Alice in Wonderland. But that's a classic dark thing, I guess.
Yeah, what was it American McGee's Alice? McGee. Yeah. That whole thing.
And I think there was at least one other
one
Malice.
As well. Malice was sort of similar, right? This sort of cute, but that was like an Xbox launch game, right? The girl with a massive hammer. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. Speaking of the Sifu developer, they're working on something new. And it turns out it's Rocket League, but football.
Well, you mean Rocket League, but people.
but with dudes, yeah. So, which is really fascinating. Well, it's fascinating, but like, it's quite a shift for them, I suppose, to do a multiplayer game. But it clearly looks like them. The animation is great, but like the stadium environment could not be more of a lift from Rocket League, is all I can say. Like it's walled like a five-a-side match, but the wall is like clearly like holograms, and you play in a desert or in a stadium or underwater or on a space station, and it's like, well, this is all sounding Rocket League.
That reminds me, something I wanted to bring up about Rocket League, just from something I mentioned last time, but when the new update hit and it was like they did that Neo Tokyo map.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's not Neo Tokyo with grass. Turns out it is Neo Tokyo with grass, but at least all the other aesthetic has changed as well. But there is grass.
There is grass.
So they still haven't got out of that. It's still grass.
Is it like overgrown? Like
no, it's just regular pitch grass that they do for all of these.
No, but I meant like the aesthetic outside.
No, the aesthetic outside is like cyberspace. Is like, you know.
Oh, okay.
As if Neo Tokyo was inside a computer or whatever.
Oh, shouldn't they have made the grass like somehow cyberpunk?
They should have made it like something, like make it orange or something. I don't care.
Or just triangles, not grass shaped.
Yes, but it is just the regular grass texture that they've used in all of these grass pictures.
That's weird and lazy.
Yep. But as I
Psyonix must be working on something else, right?
well, for Fortnite mainly, probably.
Probably Fortnite, yeah.
Porting all the content that they make for Rocket League to Fortnite and doubles their workload.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I'm quite intrigued by Rematch, as it's called. It looks like you're playing it like as a single player as well. You're not playing the team, so get your Libero Grande vibes here. I don't know. Interesting. CD Projekt Red have been working on something. Can you guess what it is? I mean, Zach can because he can see my screen.
Yep.
That was a genuine question, Dan. Yeah, it was The Witcher. There is a fourth Witcher coming. But this time...
Actually, I saw this trailer. That's the one thing I did see. And that might be an example of... Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched the whole trailer.
Big one.
Yeah.
It's like, that is borderline almost a story.
Yeah.
But not quite. Still a trailer.
I mean, the Witcher 4 trailer could quite happily live inside Secret Level.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget that character's name. Is it Keris or something? Anyway, it's not. Geralt is no longer the main protagonist. You will play as. Forgive me. I'm going to assume it's Keris.
And how are you going to witch if you're not a witcher?
Well, I think she is a witcher. That's the thing.
But not like a true one, right? Because they were all those weird manufactured people or whatever the story of Witcher was.
I do not have enough knowledge to comment. Witcher 3 is one of those games that I keep saying to myself, I should really play that and get around to playing it, but just never do.
Yep.
So there's more Witcher coming in about 5 or 10 years' time, knowing CD Projekt Red's timescales.
Or maybe it'll come out in 2 years, but then you still won't want to play it for 3 years.
You still won't want to play it for at least 3 more. That is how they usually function, unfortunately. Elden Ring is getting some more content next year.
Well, not exactly. Though.
Not exactly. It's not.
You don't mean another expansion.
No, it sort of is, but it's standalone. A standalone. What do they call them? Expansions. Like I don't know. Some people have words for these. Anyway, as a standalone product based on Elden Ring, which is focusing on co-op. Basically, it's a multiplayer experience this time around. Like properly co-op, I suppose, rather than just boss summons and the limited multiplayer features that From games are generally known for. So get hype, I suppose, if you're an Elden Ringist and want to play with people.
Well, maybe.
Which, I don't know, maybe half the Elden Ring audience. I don't know, maybe the playing with people is a problem. Who knows? Anyway, that's what they're doing. Out next year. We got a trailer for the sequel to Outer Worlds, unsurprisingly called Outer Worlds 2. This is Obsidian's new thing. And they really played up to the fact that, hey, we're good at games with a 2 in them. Because, Obsidian have been well known to pick up other studios' projects and then make the second one of them.
I feel like New Vegas didn't have a 2 in it.
No, and they made a joke about that because it was like, we did this 2 and this 2 and Fallout 3 2 New Vegas. I mean, it looks like more Outer Worlds. They were like, it's got more guns and more. One direct from the trailer, like, and more graphics. We've got more graphics. Yeah, that first game was pretty good, but like it felt slightly small in scope compared to perhaps games of its ilk or similar things. That like the number of places you could go was a little bit limited, and even though that Obsidian did their classic diamond thing quite well, the choices you make and the direction you take feels pretty organic and pretty natural. They it didn't necessarily feel like the same size as a Fallout, right? Or it wasn't a New Vegas in terms of size. So maybe Outer Worlds 2 will be them getting a chance to do that. I didn't necessarily mind the fact it was smaller in scope. I mean, I'm not so bothered about its playtime being hundreds of hours. That's not what I need. But it would have been nice to have a touch more variety in it. So So if they can do that, Outer Worlds 2 should be a good game. Out next year.
Excellent. Well, that's something to look forward to, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I liked that first game. It was funny. Speaking of funny guys, funny people, Joseph Fares, the sweary bloke off the Game Awards, he turned up to announce Hazelight's new project, which, Hazelight are known for doing their, basically everything since Brothers has been a co-op experience of sorts, like A Way Out, and more recently, It Takes Two, and Game of the Year award-winning It Takes Two, I should point out. So they're going to do more of that, but this time in a completely different sort of setting. It's called Split Fiction, and the idea is that you are a pair of girls or ladies, I don't quite know that their ages seems indeterminate, but young ladies, stuck inside a simulation of sorts where one of them was writing science fiction stories and one of them was writing fantasy stories. Something goes a bit awry and they get stuck, and now they have to play through each other's stories in order to somehow get out of the simulation. So get ready for some enforced co-op. There's no other way to play this. There has to be two of you. It looked pretty good. I quite liked It Takes Two, but it turned out to be impossible to play with Gnome for multiple reasons.
Right.
So, and I've always kind of been intrigued by No Way Out as well, but I never really convinced Zach to play that with us. And people seem to love these things. So, if you want more of what Hazelight do, this seems like an obvious vehicle for that. And they played into like the fact that we love variety in our games. Like they don't really stick to a mechanic for very long. And that was very true of It Takes Two as well. Each level was kind of focused around a mechanic that you'd probably only see for that level and never again. And of course, with the fact that they're constantly swapping worlds in this, it's probably going to be the same thing again. Like you're probably going to have a level focused on a mechanic and then move on, keeping it fresh for its run time. I think it's one to watch. It'd be hard not to say that, from that studio.
Mm.
So, oh boy. Then we've got to talk about one of my favorite studios, RGG, because, they announced a bunch of stuff, of which I seem to have forgotten to write one of them down. They announced 3 new projects, and I'm going to have to look up what the third one was. None of them are Like a Dragon focused. Not one. Even though one of them really looks like it could be.
That would be the stealth play. It's like, this actually is Like Dragon.
Yeah. So the first one they talked about with a somewhat fancy-looking CG trailer is that they are working on the next Virtua Fighter.
Oh.
So it has been rumored for a while that Sega were working on a VF in the background. What we didn't know is that RGG were working on it, which kind of makes sense, right? They're probably Sega's studio that have had, in recent years, the most experience with doing fights.
Well, and their fight style in the Like a Dragon brawling variety is sort of similar to ancient Virtua Fighter.
Kinda?
Kind of. That, like, the classic brawling, like, circling each other thing is kind of how Virtua Fighter used to work.
A little bit. But most of RGG, well, I say most of RGG's heritage is kind of from old Sega, right? It's from
Sure.
Amusement Vision and probably from AM2.
But whatever that means at this point, of course.
Yeah, who's still there and all that kind of jazz. But the lineage of the studio, at least, is there. So this makes sense. They didn't say a lot of the TGAs. They did have a separate event that they went and did to do some, to talk more about Virtua Fighter. And it's which I haven't watched, unfortunately. But yeah, I just think that's real interesting. It's like RGG up to something new for once. So one of the other things that they mentioned was this thing called Project Century, which which sets itself up as being in 1915 Japan. And I was immediately looking at it going, oh, this is definitely going to be like Ishin 2 or something, like a Dragon Ishin 2. But they didn't call it that. They didn't call it that. And the protagonist is not Kiryu or not anyone I recognize. So who knows what this actually is, but it's yeah.
I mean, does it seem like that's a code name or is that the real name?
I mean, I would
it has the
assume
word project in it.
Yeah, I would assume that's a code name at the moment. It wouldn't be the first time like studios have like just stuck with the code name.
Yeah.
But,
because if it is, if it's a code name, that gives you some opportunity for it still to be like a dragon,
sure,
or an Ishin.
And yeah, I don't think they revealed any release dates for any of this stuff. But hey, but at least we've got like Pirate Yakuza coming next year. Maybe that's the other thing I was thinking. Maybe I was just thinking they've got 3 games in the works. There was only 2 revealed. But anyway, 2 RGG announcements at least. Probably more that I'm forgetting. Fun times. Love that studio. What else we got? The Space Marine developers, Space Marine, they're working on a new Turok game.
How's that licensing work?
I mean, yeah, who has a claim now? Did that go through the 2K route? And is Space Marine technically made by a 2K studio? I don't know what the lineage from a claim is. But yeah, there's a new Turok game. Did the Night Dive remasters of Turok 1 and Turok 2 that came out recently, did they do well enough that they were like, you know what, we can make a Turok game? Supposedly it's got co-op stuff in it now. That's all we really know.
Mm.
Is it going to feature like heavily British voices like Space Marine? Turok, my name is Turok. I'm a dinosaur.
Well, I mean, is it even the same Turok? That's the real question.
Well, I mean, it didn't. If the guy they showed in the trailer is supposed to be Turok, it didn't look like the Turok that I guess has been in previous games. Do you know what I mean? Not quite thick-jawed enough, but that just could have been the lack of polygons, right? From those old games.
Not square polygon jaw.
As if Shadow Labyrinth and Horror Pac-Man wasn't enough, this was a big surprise and weirdly timely, given what we've what we've recorded and haven't put up on the website just yet. Screamer, the racing game, is making a return.
What?
Developed by Milestone, the very same developer behind the original Screamer games that have been working on MotoGP.
Sort of, right?
Kinda, yeah. It's Moto. They've been working on MotoGP and blah 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 blah.
I mean, they weren't the original company because we looked this up. We
did try and figure it out at one point, but
these were like. What was it? This was like after Screamer 2, the IP got moved.
Screamer got moved to a different dev.
Yeah.
So Screamer 4x4 was made by someone else, not Milestone, whilst Milestone went
Milestone
on to
kept making various racing type things.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. So they've been doing it for, 30 years at this point? But yeah, they're bringing Screamer back with, as what looks like an anime drifting game.
Oh, like Initial D kind of?
Kinda, yeah, but with some cyberpunky vibes, I guess. Like,
more like a Need for Speed, probably.
Yeah, maybe. It looks a bit like a Need for Speed Heat kind of look to it. Not quite the same as Unbounded. It doesn't have Unbounded's like graffiti style, right? It looks more like Heat's neon-soaked look. But, and it was only a trailer, I should point out. There was no gameplay in this thing. But they're bringing back Screamer, and you won't know this, listeners, but we very recently recorded a video of Screamer 2.
So we are prepared.
Yeah, we're ahead of the curve, yo.
But that video, I can see if it doesn't get any more views, which it won't.
It really won't, because places have been reporting on this to be like, holy crap, Screamer's coming back.
I found out about it because your brother wishlisted it on Steam.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wait, your brother wishlisted Screamer? What the hell does that mean?
It's like, oh, it's
Did
not...
he see our video that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah. What an amazing coincidence. And also, I'm so hype.
Get hype.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's making me all emotional.
Good emotion.
As I think for a lot of people, this next announcement did, it was hinted at earlier this year that Capcom might have been working on a beloved Japanese-focused franchise that, I say, I can't really call it a franchise. It had like one game and a bunch of remasters. They're making a sequel to Okami, finally.
Wow, a sequel?
A sequel,
So,
like a proper
direct sequel.
a proper actual new game, which hasn't happened. Like they made the original for Wii, and it got HD re-releases, and I think it relatively recently had another remaster.
I thought I had it on the GameCube. Am I insane? No, PlayStation 2?
Yeah, there was.
PlayStation 2.
I think there was a PS2 release later. The Wii version was the original because they used the wand to have you draw things on the screen, and then they had to figure out controller support for that later.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it on the PS2, which is weird.
Yeah, I think it did come out on PS2. They eventually made Okami HD, and I think there was, as I say, there was another remaster not that long ago. Kunitsugami was the thing that hinted at it, right? Because you could change your costume. It was like the one out of place thing you could do in Kunitsugami was change both the soundtrack and the costume of the characters to be Okami themed.
Well, I mean, that was really hinting at it. That's just like Capcom using their licenses for Easter eggs.
That's what I thought at the time, yeah. But maybe it was sort of like a little... Guys, we know you like Okami. I mean, I'm pretty excited about this, but then that also made me realize I never actually finished the first game. Because it was quite long.
Yeah.
And there was an awful lot of text-based chat in it. And I mean, quite a lot. But I think I wouldn't mind going back to Okami and playing that again. I did really love my time with it. I think it's a beautiful game, and I think it plays very well. And it's just really cool that you're a dog. Come on.
Exactly. Badass.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. I'm into that.
I'm looking, and actually, it did come out first on PS2, so it was a port to Wii. Which
it
is
was
great,
a port to Wii. It was that way round. Oh, okay.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because the brush is an obvious Wii feature, but no, it actually came on PS2 first.
That's true. That wouldn't have made sense, right? What I said anyway, right? It couldn't have come out on the Wii. The Wii was so much later than PlayStation 2.
That's what I mean. That's why I was momentarily confused, because I was thinking of I don't know, Twilight Princess being on having that on GameCube. And
yes, you're right. This is a moment where the poor performance of physical, the poor graphical performance of the Wii has confused me.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. It has to be that way around.
But that is exciting.
It is exciting. I'd like to see how that looks, because the trailer obviously was obviously a teaser more than anything else. It was all painted, really. But holy crap! And I guess the other the final announcement, right? The one more thing that was in the TGAs, it was another holy crap moment, because we know what Naughty Dog has been working on all this damn time that wasn't Last of Us remasters.
Oh my god, what is it?
So it's called Intergalactic. It's a brand new IP. Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, to give it its full title.
Have they got the Beastie Boys license?
They might, actually, in fairness.
Thematically fit.
I mean, they didn't, because it's a 90s, 80s styled cyberpunk space adventure. I was really jonesing at first for this looks an awful lot like Cowboy Bebop in some ways. It feels like it's really pulling from that
Right, I love that aesthetic.
Yeah.
Or Beyond Good and Evil 2, finally, but no.
that would have been really funny. It's like Naughty Dog making Beyond Good and Evil 2.
A lot of Cowboy Bebop is just the style of it, to be fair. I mean,
100%.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good story-wise as well, but I mean, it's mostly style.
Oh, yeah. It's impossible to argue on that. But it's fantastic. So they are leaning into to the point where the ship the main bounty hunter character is flying is got Porsche branding all over it, but like
Nice.
but like the 911s from the 80s, right? That square Porsche font written on it and excessive badges all over it, and she turns on an old Sony stereo system with big ass dials and old school, and even the one small hint of gameplay that we get that it's probably going to be a character action game at heart is that she's wielding a sword where the nasty bit looks like a graphic equalizer. It's so rad. I sort of thought to myself afterwards, it's like we were talking, was it last episode or the episode before, about what would drive me to get a PlayStation?
Yeah.
I think we finally found it. This might be the one. But God knows how far away it is. There was absolutely no date attached to this or anything like that. But this is my Spider-Man 1 moment, right? This is the thing that's making me go, oh, God.
Well, I mean, maybe if you're lucky, it will just come out on PC if Sony continues to...
I mean, it probably will.
Put their stuff out on PC.
And maybe by the time that happens, I'll actually have a PC that can run it.
Well, yep, there's that.
But yeah. Yeah, hype. That looks like a game. Well, actually, we have no idea what they.
Most of these don't necessarily look like a game at the moment.
No, that's true. But in like raw style, so in. That's the Game Awards. I haven't actually talked about any of the awards. Like, do we care about?
No, of course we don't care about awards.
Astrobot won because, of course, it was going to. Even though it's technically not the highest rated game of the year, that is, according to OpenCritic, that is still Final Fantasy Rebirth.
Yeah, what happened with that? Oh, it didn't sell as well as they wanted, is that right?
I mean, it's Square Enix. So
they never sell as much as they want.
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't matter if it could be the best-selling game of the year, they'd probably be like, yeah, we expected more. I know. I mean, Rebirth is excellent. Like, it's like there's no qualms about it. But for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to have had the impact. I don't think that the first remake had, basically.
Maybe it's a real middle sequel then.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, it sounds by all accounts that like it has improved on remake in practically every way, but. Maybe it's because it's the middle part of the trilogy. There is something missing from it. You just don't hear people. It doesn't seem to have had a lingering conversation, right? Other than the fact that it came up recently because of PS5 Pro, right?
Because the first one, like, despite people liked it, but then there was controversy over how they were changing the story, right? But that didn't seem to be. People didn't seem to be up in arms about this one, like. Fucking everything up.
Well, presumably because it's just a continuation of the fucking up.
Yeah, they've changed it all, so it's like now we're just rolling with it, right?
So it's like consistently fucked. That's the key.
But I kind of can't see how they could have done without it, right? They would have had to have changed some stuff just to make this trilogy format function.
Yeah,
and make good games still.
Here's a random bit of secondary news that talking about Rebirth reminded me. Apparently, the Final Fantasy VII speedrunners have finally found how to skip disc 1.
What, skip all of disc 1?
Well, not all of it. Obviously, you have to load the game on disc 1. There's like parts of the game you have. But like once you get to the world map, you can now skip immediately to the Sacred Forest or whatever. So you don't have to like do the entire first continent. Actually, I don't even remember, when do you go to the Sacred Forest the first time?
I mean, you'll have to watch our video series. And
it's after It must be after the rocket launch because you're on the plane boat thing, right?
I thought it was quite a way in.
Yeah. But they've discovered a way to basically just clip through the ocean and just walk immediately across to that island.
Is that the same skip I've heard about where basically it stops Aerith dying?
Well, yes, it's coincidentally that's the same path of this skip because you're skipping immediately to that part. Actually, I don't know how it relates to, because you'd think she would die at that point because you go to that. That's where that story beat happens, I guess. But maybe it's because you're accessing it without having the story progress to that point. It like skips that sequence or something.
Yeah,
I didn't see anything about that part of it. I just saw that they've skipped that whole disc now.
That was the headline that I think was going about. It's like, finally, there's an Aerith skip.
Yes, and it probably worked well. As probably as having that character alive ever worked. Because you could always do it by using various hacks and glitches, but now it's sort of legit. Sort of.
As much as a skip is ever legit, but... that is interesting.
So I don't know what the time save on that is now.
That must be enormous.
You would think so. Get new world records, everyone, real quick.
What a time to be alive.
What a time for Aerith to be alive.
Yeah.
Hey.
And speaking of people unnecessarily precisely deconstructing game mechanics, because we're still talking about Final Fantasy VII speedrunning at this point, original Final Fantasy VII. There's been another video by that guy who is systematically documenting every goddamn thing about Mario 64.
Oh, right.
He's just released another 3-hour-long video.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, I guess it sounds like, what has it been, nearly a year since the last one? The good old Invisible Walls video, that was insane. But now we've got it's like the Invisible Walls video, but for the Goombas. Every single possible thing you could want to know about how Goombas work in Mario 64, or at least related to glitches anyway. But it does kind of have to explain everything about how they work. It has to explain
every single mechanic about them in order to make that. The glitches make sense, right?
But yes, that's quite another one of those ridiculously complicated and insanely well-made videos. I mean, I guess now that they've got the tech to do, because the thing about the videos is it's all about how he does all the visualizations for it in game, with showing all the hitboxes and showing how here's the side view and it shows you all how it works, and stuff that it shows you things which you wouldn't be able to see this because it hasn't loaded or whatever. And that's how those videos are really good. So yeah, once they've made that tech, now you can just go through every single mechanic in that game. But yeah, the Goomba one is pretty ridiculous.
I was about to say, have you watched it? Yeah. Oh, damn. We could have watched it.
Yeah, we can if you want to, or some of it anyway.
Yeah, some of it. We're not probably not getting through a 3-hour epic.
No.
I've got a YouTuber for you guys. Maybe you've been aware of this person for years, but I guess it was new to me. Maybe I'd seen one in the past or something. But it's a guy, he did one of some of these Mario 64 ones, but instead of in detail, in depth of how the mechanics work and stuff, he just he's got a series where he just finds places in games that have a weird vibe.
Right, yeah. I've seen a couple of those.
Yes, no, I have seen this.
So I've been watching that guy recently, Annie Austin, I think he is. He's clearly a little bit, but I think he's making videos that are deliberately boring in places. But there's been some good ones recently. I think he's been going for 10 years. But there was one the other day which is following the power lines in GTA 5 and being do they actually connect to anything? Where do they go? Let's find out. Shit like that. But he does it in super detail. There's one which is the rivers in Breath of the Wild. Where do they start? Where do they end?
How do they function?
And there's a bunch of Skyrim ones. He does a series which is, now this really is boring but quite entertaining, is he goes to a town in Skyrim and he tries to figure out the unemployment rate.
Yeah.
By literally going onto every NPC and trying to figure out if they're employed or not.
I've seen a couple of those where he always, I think it's also him, but the ones for Pokemon where he does each Pokemon town. It's how many people are employed here?
Yeah. So yeah, if you want a large quantity of quite dull content, and he's quite funny, so I've been enjoying it.
Gaming's most boring stats.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's entertaining. There's some Sonic videos as well. He had an older series which is trying to reproduce glitches or whatever, which is quite fun. But yeah.
Excellent.
Recommend. I'm not quite at the Patreon level with that guy. I watch quite a lot of it now. It's very relaxing.
Make sure you bookend this plug. What was the guy's name again?
Any Austin.
There you go.
And the person I was referring to, because I never said it, was Pankirk, of course.
Ah, there we go.
There we go. Plugs for people who aren't us.
Plugs.
Yep.
Recommended, I suppose. Recommended list. Oh, speaking of recommended, I've only watched one episode so far, but I'm back on Arcane of season 2.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I need to give that another try because everyone says it's great. Stephen, my brother, really recommended it, and then I think I recommended to you on the basis of that, the original
possibly,
thing.
yeah.
But then I was like, I'm not sure it's. But everyone says it's a masterpiece. So
I mean, you and I are quite similar in the fact that if like other people like start pushing its praises, for some reason that sort of switches me off a little bit. Yeah. And this is one of those cases where that didn't happen, and I'm so glad it didn't. And it's because it is because
I've got the ultimate one of those, which I'm continuing to drive into.
Here it comes! I know what's coming.
Yeah, because you know that there was literally a coup almost in South Korea, and the president like declared martial law, and then there was a massive thing, and there was a big news item on like what had happened on Channel 4 News, and at the end of the report, plug for that one film.
Is it Parasite by any chance?
Yeah, it's Parasite. Any opportunity to talk about Parasite from anyone, even when the most serious thing in the world happens in South Korea, it's like, yep, Parasite. You're going to watch Parasite. It's the best thing ever. Anyway. And you never will.
Yeah, it's happened again. There's like, oh, maybe it was bubbling up to my to-do list. It's like, oh, no.
No, it's dropped all the way back down. Yeah, anyway.
Squid Game Season 2 before that. It's fine. Talk about Korean TV.
And that might have happened to me with Squid Game, actually. I need to watch that because
Squid Game is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, yeah.
You kind of have to be in the right mood for it, though. Like, it isn't...
Yeah.
It isn't a fun time.
Yeah.
But it is good.
Parasite, my thing is like, what genre even is it? It's really funny. So it's like a comedy, drama, horror, thriller. It's every genre. I don't know how it does it.
Is it Cabin in the Woods?
Social commentary? It's everything. Anyway.
Is it a Joss Whedon? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's not a Joss Whedon. I'll tell you that. It's not an Avengers.
But is it more of a Firefly?
No, what was it? Serenity. Yes, focus.
Yes, well, Serenity was the film, right? Yeah.
No, it's not a Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's not a Dr. Horrible sing-along vlog.
What is, though?
What is? He's cancelled, though, right?
Kinda, yeah. I don't really know the backstory about it. I just
semi-cancelled.
Yeah, I quite know. I don't pay attention to these things. I don't know why.
Well, you could tell by the fact that he's not putting out.
He's not. Yeah, he's not been hired by Disney recently. That's how that works, right?
No, that ain't happening yet.
And that's the news. Unless there's anything else. Nay, sir.
I don't think so. I guess it's time for what you've been playing in that case. Zach, what have you been playing? I want to know. Tell me. In the past 2-week period.
Well, this time I haven't been quite so much playing Factorio. It kind of managed to stifle me by I'm pretty sure I could sort of just end the game at this point. Like I think I'd still have to research the railguns because you need the railguns for dealing with the biggest asteroids as you make your way out to the solar system edge, which is supposedly the end point. Or it's not really the end point because you can then go further, but when you get to the solar system edge point, that's what triggers the end screen in the same way launching the rocket in original Factorio did.
Right. I was about to ask, what is the actual target? Is it just reach a spot?
Yeah, I think that it's just have a platform that can survive going that far, and then that's the end point in the same way launching the rocket is the end point, which then means of course you can continue afterwards and do other stuff. And I think I if I research the railgun tech and get a few of those and attach them to my reasonably well-armed platform, right, it's like I probably could knock that out relatively quickly. But I'm at the point where I'm looking at those achievements again, like the make a legendary armor that has a full set of legendary modules, and the like. It's just. I think it's just because of the way it's probability based with the quality system. It's just like that maths is too difficult.
Right.
I can't handle just trying to figure things out in my head just by looking at it. Because
you finally found your Factorio limit.
Yeah, kind of. Because I was trying to figure out like what would be the easiest way to make like legendary quality modules, because obviously because obviously the quality of the quality modules affects how much quality they output.
Right.
So it's like I have to make legendary quality modules.
Doesn't have the quality.
So I was looking at that.
Is this the case for like the coaches of the football team?
Yes.
You don't have legendary quality coaches. They're not going to produce quality output.
Well, the
quality on the pitch.
Those quality coaches don't have the correct quality modules that they install.
Exactly. They're not legendary.
Throw them in the quality recycler. But I was trying to work out, like, is it better to go to the scrap planet and then run the scrap through quality recyclers to get the high level like microchips but quality, and then start from there to make the quality modules? Or is it better to go to the volcanic planet and start from raw resources and then progress them up through the chain of like manufacturing with quality at each step to get to the chips and then assemble? Like, which direction do you get the highest probability of quality out of? It's probably the volcanic planet, I think, but the scrap planet was much easier, so I did that first. Because basically when you recycle the scrap, it gives you blue circuits and red circuits, and making the tier 3 modules uses blue circuits and red circuits, except you also have to make the tier 2 modules, which also uses blue and red circuits, and then you also have to make the tier 1 modules, which uses red and green circuits. So you do have to still get the green circuits by recycling the blue circuits.
What does coloured circuits mean?
That's just like the tier of the circuits.
Oh, okay.
Like green is the lowest tier, and then red is the mid tier, and then blue is the high tier, basically.
Okay.
So they're just more complicated. But because in the scrap planet you're going from the highest quality stuff, highest tier stuff downwards, you're starting with blue and red circuits, but if you need green circuits, you have to recycle some of the blue circuits to turn them into green circuits.
Into worse ones.
Ones, yeah.
Weird.
So I was like, that makes making...
That's not at all how circuitry works.
No. Well, the whole recycling system is weird anyway. But I was like, that's the easiest way to make... It's the easiest way to make any kind of modules, because you're just getting the circuits for free, basically, out of the recycling the scrap. But, like, is it better to make the quality modules that way, or the higher quality stuff? Because in order to, like, if you want to directly make a legendary quality item, you have to have the legendary quality ingredients. Or you can make it from a lower quality set of ingredients and have quality modules to give you a chance of getting the legendary. So if you're making it with all legendary quality ingredients, you're guaranteed to get a legendary module out. But if you're using the quality modules to like upgrade from lower quality ingredients, it's a percentage chance.
Your probability, yeah.
So I was like, I did make a setup to do that, where it's just like, it has a whole bunch of ridiculous recycling loops where it basically, you build up a stock of the lower quality, and then once it reaches whatever limit I've set on it, it starts recycling that to move it up to the next quality. And it just keeps doing that over and over until it eventually makes legendary stuff. And I'm like, well, that works well enough for the modules, but maybe not for any of the other stuff that I want to make legendary, like all the armor parts that I'm going to have to make.
Right, yeah.
So now I'm looking at the volcanic planet where I'm like, well, I can start from lava, basically, which is it's not entirely 100% free. You do have to use this other type of ore to like turn the lava into liquid metal, but it's like it uses it in a very tiny proportion, so it's almost free. And I'm like, then could I just, because I can basically make these almost free metal plates, is it then better to just run those straight into a recycler and just like keep recycling them over and over until you get legendary ones and then start building from there? Or is it better to try and use the mid-tier metal plates and then use quality modules in the crafting processes to level them up? But yeah, it's just this whole chain of probability maths that I just can't be asked to actually do properly. So I'm just like, I'm trying to guess and like building temporary setups to see if it looks like this is going to be better or not.
Yeah, I just have to do it and compare, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to do something really fancy because I was like, okay, if I'm trying to make just iron plates in the highest quality I can quickly. So you have that thing where if you recycle it through a recycler with quality modules in, it has a probability to upgrade it, but you also lose 75% of everything you put through the recycler.
Right.
Because it just deletes it. So I was like, okay, you can do that to just upgrade iron plates directly. Or you could take the iron plates and then like craft them into things that only use iron. So like you can take the iron plates and craft it into gears, and then you can take the gears and some more iron plates and craft it into belts. And each of those crafting steps can have quality modules. So, like, if you do that series of crafting steps and then recycle the belts back down into plates, does that give you a higher chance of getting the higher quality or not?
I see what you mean. Yeah, okay.
Because you can put quality modules in each crafting step up and each recycling step down.
And does that add up in your favour?
But then I was like, that maths is far too complicated, so I just had to build it and find out. And I was like, probably not. It's probably better just to run a shit ton of plates into the recyclers and just get it that way.
Yeah, just put them in a loop, right?
Just until it overflows into legendary. So yeah, I started doing that on the volcanic planet, but then I was just like, that was when I needed a break, essentially. Like, this is just too much. I mean,
probabilities on top of probabilities.
Yes.
Welcome to A-level maths, everyone.
Yep. I hated statistics in A-level maths.
Yeah, statistics wasn't as fun as regular ass maths.
Nope. But in theory, if I can get like legendary quality parts on the volcanic planets, you can make. It's not even what I'm aiming to do with these legendary quality things, because obviously I'm after that achievement for the armor. But if you can make legendary quality big mining drills, which is like one of the volcanic planet's special buildings, the effect of higher quality on those mining drills is it basically just reduces how much of the ore it uses. So at base, those drills have, I think, 50% resource use, so you get twice as much per amount in the resource patch. But then if you get those up to legendary quality, it's like 8%.
Oh, right.
So the resource patches almost hardly ever run out at that point. And then obviously, since you're using only a tiny trickle of this ore to combine with the lava, if you then mine that with an 8% mining drill, you're never going to run out of that. Then the plates are effectively infinite. At that point.
Nice.
So it's like, that seems like a logical thing to try and do, I guess. It will mean I'll have to make legendary tungsten as well, though, which is slightly more expensive, because the tungsten is the rare resource of that planet.
Do you guys ever get... sorry, complete tangent, but this is where my mind went after the discussion on maths.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever get offered the option to do discrete maths? Because I noticed...
I don't think I did.
I think I remember noting at the time that was like the third branch of mathematics you could do. Like there was like pure stats and discrete. And it's like, why the bloody hell are we not doing... Like, can't I have done that instead of the stats?
Yeah. But no, that's one of those things that they always do where like, the default is stats.
Is that and stats. Yeah, discrete is like integer math and logic.
What did we do in discrete maths?
Yeah, we did offensive maths.
Not allowed anymore. Couldn't have that these days.
Yeah, I don't think.
Because I did it at uni in the first year.
Sure,
there was a course on that. In fairness, I wasn't that good at because because matrices math.
Oh yeah,
good God,
that was our one though, right down, because we had a specific matrix maths book, right?
Yeah, I think there was like a matrix module, so it's probably just how it was sliced, right? We probably did cover what would have been called discrete maths, right?
Yeah, probably
matrices and all the dot cross product and all that stuff.
Yeah, which is actually incredibly useful if you know what you're using it for. But
well, especially in computing, right?
In particular.
I mean, where it got to, and I could do the calculus and I could do the matrix stuff, but once I was at university doing vector calculus, which is both combined, it was like, nope, too much. Can't handle like these integrals in 3 dimensions.
I did try learning a bit of it, like again, like a couple years after my discrete course, when I was doing computer graphics course, and there was some OpenGL stuff there. and trying to combine the two. Good God, my head exploded, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I think that's what one actually ends up doing, like for physics or something, but also for like presumably for computer graphics. It's hugely useful in rendering. Yeah. And just physics, computer physics in general, and stuff like that. It's all incredibly useful for that stuff. I'm looking it up. I remember curl.
Oh man, yeah.
Vector Laplacian. Oh my god.
My mum dropped off a bag of random documents the other week, like stuff she just found in the attic. It's like, I think these are yours, and it's like, yeah, they are. They're like pay slips from when I was 16. But like in this bag also were my like university course results from like the last year, and I'm looking at the marks on them, going, oh, they are way worse than I remember.
Yeah.
It's like, I was not very good at uni, was I?
I mean, you were working and having a big figuring out your social life, and a lot of shit going on at university.
University was a problematic time for me.
Yeah, I think we all. Yeah,
problematic is the word. Yes.
Yeah. I think we did all right.
Yeah, we ended up fine. It didn't do me any harm.
It didn't do us any harm. Just reading this description here of the vector Laplacian, measures the difference between the value of the vector field with its average on infinitesimal balls. I guess, right, instead of points, because they're 3D, they have to be balls. But that's the same thing, isn't it? Why couldn't you just say infinitesimal points? I guess that emphasizes that they're three-dimensional points. Or balls.
I mean, I guess it means you can have tangent planes, I guess, if it's a 3D object.
Sure.
Anyway.
Anyway, just had to get that off my mind.
Not quite that much maths in Factorio yet.
I'm sure you'll reach that point.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so I took a break from Factorio somewhat. I popped briefly into Satisfactory to look at Fixmas. I mean, it hasn't really changed. It's just been like version 1, I guess. Made final, got the proper graphics and effects and all that stuff, and all the voice lines, of course, for your computer AI. Who basically the
mandatory jolliness.
Yes, the joke that they've decided to make is half like mandatory fun and half for some reason the AI just hates it.
Okay.
Very disapproving of Christmas, I guess, because you're not working.
Yeah,
it's like you're wasting your time doing these pointless side tasks instead of doing the actual thing you're meant to be doing. But yeah,
have you forgotten your sacred quest?
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like that. You're meant to be saving the planet or whatever the secret goal of this thing is that I still don't know because I haven't reached the end of Satisfactory. But yeah, the thing about Fixmas, of course, is because it's based on the Advent calendar. It's actually, you can't do all of it until you get to a certain day.
Okay.
It unlocks as you go through the Advent calendar. So I did as much as I could. And also, I don't know, the way the Fixmas sort of tech tree works has always been sort of awkward because at the start you have to just collect the presents as they fall from the sky, and that's just how you get the resource presents. But then at a certain point you unlock the like Christmas tree that just generates presents, so you can put them on a belt or whatever, and then you can start making an actual crafting thing out of that. And then as you go further up that tech tree, it's like, oh, now you have to combine baubles with like iron or copper to make different coloured baubles or whatever. Which then means, of course, you actually do need to have some of the actual normal resources available as well. It's like, oh, I need an iron patch. Where haven't I already built a factory on all the iron patches around here? I need to go and find some iron patch I haven't exploited so I can start using that to make baubles.
And then fence it off the rest of the year to be, this is my Christmas exploitation patch.
Yeah, I guess. I don't, because I did Fixmas once before in the early access version, and I don't remember what happens to the factory after the Fixmas period is over. Like whether those buildings just stay there or like mysteriously disappear or something.
Get deconstructed.
But yeah, I did as much of that as I could at the time, but I'll probably wait until Actually, I don't know how. I need to look at that tech tree again to see how many more steps there are, so I know what day I might have to come back. I think the next one is like tomorrow. I think is the next unlock on the tech tree for advancing it.
Lights for the baubles.
No, I think it's reeves. You put the baubles into a reef. But yeah, and you get some free. On the days where it isn't advancing the tech tree, you just get some random free crap out of the advent calendar. The second day is like it just gives you a nuke, and it's like
okay.
It's like it'd be a shame if you dropped this during Christmas, as the AI suggests. I can't quite make those myself yet. The nuclear explosives. I haven't quite got to uranium mining in my actual progress. The most it's a very Fallout kind of thing where it's like you have the explosive detonation packs that you use for like demolishing rocks or whatever, but then you get the nuclear version, but you are still just like chucking them by hand. So I'm just holding this nuke and I'm just going to chuck it at you.
What do you need nukes for? It's like,
I mean, just killing the bigger enemies quick if you want, I guess, or destroying a lot of rocks probably. Although I don't think the explosion radius is actually that big. I think it might not be a much.
I don't know if you're throwing it by hand.
Well, I don't think it's much of a bigger explosion radius than the regular explosives. It just does a lot more damage inside that radius.
Right.
They showed
very condensed nukes.
Yes. They showed it in the original trailer for the update that updated all the weaponry. But I think if you have the explosive packs and the homing bullets for the gun, the homing bullets will lock on to the explosive packs, so you could like chuck them and then shoot them to trigger it instead of using the detonator. So if you want to be cool, you can be like, huzz it, and then shoot at the enemy, but the bullets lock onto the explosive and it just explodes on top of him.
Nice. They're still doing that in a lot of trailers, I noticed. Like doing the thing of throw a grenade, shoot the grenade, rather than just, let it explode where you throw it.
Doesn't make any sense for most types of grenades.
No.
So yeah, that was my brief visit to Satisfactory. And then apart from that, because obviously Satisfactory isn't super different from Factorio, I was like, I need a break from this whole thing. Maybe I'll go back to Vintage Story, because they're on the verge of releasing a new update. Well, they sort of already have, because it's in like release candidate or whatever. So you can currently play it, but it's not fully final. But yeah, they're in the midst of releasing this new update. Unfortunately, this new update is mostly sort of end gamey stuff.
Okay. So
I'm not likely to see any of it in this game that I'm playing, because I started a new save, obviously. Mainly because my last save that I got quite far in was actually modded. So I don't know if all the mods have updated to current, because it's only just come out, basically. But yeah, the new stuff that they've put in for this end game is like they've added several more like parts to the story progress, where there's like specific dungeons or whatever that you work your way through. So there's now like, I think there's like 4 more on top of the one that already existed. But I've never even seen that first one, because we never got to that point at any point in Vintage Story. And then some of them, I think after you've done the first dungeon, you can then access the ability to like tame an elk to be your mount, basically, instead of a horse.
Nice. And
you can like attach all saddlebags to it and stuff, which is pretty cool.
To the antlers.
No, off the sides.
Nah.
But it's a pretty cool looking system, where it's like, obviously it can carry a whole bunch of stuff, and like you can put your bedroll on the back, and you can hang food pots off the sides so you can store food on it and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's very cool, but that's like practically late game. And also,
you want to enjoy that throughout the game, maybe.
And also the other problem, you'd have to find an elk. Which, in Vintage Stories world, Jen, it's actually quite difficult to find a specific type of animal. Like in the current save I was playing, I think I saw one moose at some point, and then never saw it again. It tried to kill me, but then I ran away, and then when I've been back to that same area, I've never seen it again. Don't know what happened. But apart from that, it's like I've seen that one moose. I've seen a type of deer, I've seen a type of goats, but then there's like 5 different types of goats, and there's like 10 different types of deer. So even to find an elk at all would be, and they probably also spawn in a specific climate as well, which is the other problem with all the animals of that game, is like they do have specific.
Need the Canada biome.
Yeah, specific biomes, and because Vintage Story actually has like a real world gen instead of like Minecraft and random bullshit world gen, it's like if you wanted to get to an Arctic-ish biome, you'd actually have to travel north a hell of a long way.
Right.
So maybe finding an elk won't actually be that easy. It's like it's a very cool system, but I feel like in order to make it really functional, you'd need either to exploit the teleporter network, of course, to get north really quickly, or just maybe the devs could expand it to cover like slightly more different animals. More than one.
Yeah.
More than one singular type of animal out of all the types of animals that are in the game.
Maybe that's, if it's endgamey stuff, maybe that's why, because it's like they were like, oh, well, no one's going to be in the snowland as their primary area, so it's or in the cold.
Yeah, or maybe they are expecting that by the time, because obviously we've never really got to that point in the game, but I'm like, maybe by the time you get there, you just sort of naturally are more capable of traversing and like getting the teleporters working, because that costs resources, but maybe it's just easier to travel long distances at that point, because obviously you're going to have to find all of these different dungeons as well. I believe the first one you can go to a treasure hunter trader and then he'll like basically mark it on your map for the first one. I don't know how all the other ones work though. So yeah, that's quite endgame. But I just started a new save and was just like, let's go back to vanilla and see what little bits that have been updated. I mean, there's another thing that...
So what held you up before? Like, what made you stop playing it the first time? Is it just because it's early access and you were like having a bit of like, I'm going to see how this...
Yeah, kind of. I mean, in the multiplayer game, we were getting slightly bogged down into modern stuff, so we didn't really progress towards the actual, dungeon stuff. Right, yeah. But also, I think at that time when we were playing that, even that first dungeon wasn't fully complete at that point, so we were kind of holding off on going to it anyway. But yeah, I mean, getting to that point still takes a while. It's weird because I feel like those dungeons, even just the first one, they feel endgame because it feels like you kind of need to have like the best armor and stuff before you even go there, just to be able to survive. Or maybe you might be able to get away with iron instead of steel, but that's still, steel is the end of the tech tree in terms of like progression through the armor tiers, and it feels like you kind of needed that anyway just to get to that. But then what are you doing at that point? Because like the whole thing you're doing throughout playing the game is building up your ability to do these more advanced processes and survive at the same time. Like you're building the whole farm so you can live through the winter, and then you're gradually working your way up the tech tree of the metals by being able to find them and then mine them with the higher quality picks or whatever. But once you get to steel, it's like that just stops. And then it's just like, then you're just meant to go to these places, I guess. That doesn't seem as interesting.
Yeah. You see what you mean? Like, what are we actually going to do? Why would we go there?
Yeah.
Like,
what is the reward also? I mean, getting a mount, I suppose, but then all you're using that mount for is to go to the 4 other dungeons, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like
there's a missing mid bit.
Yeah, it feels like there's some tech tree, like... Yeah, I mean, I don't know you'd be able to advance it further up, but like sideways. Like you need different options at each of these tiers, maybe. I don't know. Because one of the other things that got added in this patch, it used to be a mod, but it's been integrated into vanilla, basically, is like the beehive kiln, which is a special type of kiln for basically firing mass quantities of clay items. Because normally when you fire a clay item, you dig a hole, you put it in there, you cover it up with like grass and then sticks and then peat usually on the top, and then you light it on fire for a day, and then that fires the clay. It's a pit kiln. So now you have basically a building essentially that you can fire clay in. It's just like a brick box with a door, and then you put the clay in there. And like, that's cool, and it allows you to fire a shit ton of refractory bricks, I guess, for the steel making process, because you need those. But by the time you're at that point in the tech tree where you can make like the iron door for it and all the other parts, you're not going to be firing tons of clay. Like you've already made all the clay normal stuff you're ever going to need, probably. It's like it's only for making the bricks at that point, and even then, not really. You could probably, because you're having to use the bricks to make the thing, to make more of the bricks. It's just like, is it worth it? It's a very cool thing, but like, it seems kind of pointless without any real other reasons to use it. And there's also a few other, like Vintage Story has a weird element of like putting things in that are inconvenient but realistic, and it's like, this is actually just pointless. Like, they made it so if you're casting like metal in a mold, like a clay mold, if it gets wet, the mold can break now.
Huh.
And it's like, that's only an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's cool and it's realistic, but it's completely pointless.
Now we need to make sure there's a roof.
Yeah.
Or something.
But the thing is that, like, in mods that extended the mold casting system, the mods made it so you could just, like, pour water on it to make it cool faster.
Oh.
But now in the base game, they've done the exact opposite of that, where if you pour water on it, it actually breaks it.
It's going to be a thermal shock, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it, like, there's no reason. It's like, it is just a pointless, realistic feature that there's no benefit to it in any way.
No, well, I mean, yeah, unless the devs felt like actually slowing you down is because you've got to wait for the old cooling.
Well, but in the base game, it kind of didn't allow you to do that anyway. Like, I think the molds did cool down slightly faster if they were out in the rain. But I don't think you could use the watering can to cool them off in vanilla. That was only in the mod, I think. So it's like they added that specifically to fuck up that mod, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they did this is not our vision.
I don't know. It's just weird. But yeah, there's a lot of things like that where it's just like slight inconveniences where it's like, this is realistic, but like, why?
Does it only work, like, if the thing wasn't hot and you put it in, got it wet, would it still break? Like, is it actually a thermal shock?
Well, yeah, presumably there is a like temperature limit to maybe where that happens. Because another thing that you can do which is almost entirely pointless is you can, when you take things out of the cast and they're still hot, or if you've been doing a thing on the anvil and it's still hot, you can throw it into the water to cool it down. But if you're making, say, like a tool part, like a pickaxe head or whatever, you don't actually need to do that. You can just craft the pickaxe in your crafting grid and it just resets the temperature. Well, because the pickaxes can't have temperature. So if the pickaxe head was super hot when you craft it, it doesn't actually matter.
No, I see. Right.
All it means is you can't hold it in your hands, so you can't, basically you can't select it on your hotbar, but it can be in your inventory and be super hot.
Burning a hole in your backpack.
Yeah. It doesn't really make much sense. Because you have, when you need to actually hold something, like when you're putting it on the anvil, you have like tongs that go in your offhand slot. So you need to have those equipped, or otherwise you can't actually hold that item while you're moving it around. But if you haven't got that hotbar slot selected, it can just sit there. It's totally fine. Just as soon as you try and select it, you just drop it.
Oh, is that all that happens? You just go, nope.
Yeah, basically.
Big bag of nope.
But yes, you can cool things down by throwing them in the water. It's just, there's no real reason to. It's just this realistic mechanic that doesn't really have any purpose.
I guess it looks good in trailers.
Oh, well, yeah, it is kind of cool. It's a nice effect for,
Fancy.
They made the effect for it. And I guess the other thing that is actually more early game for this update is they've added new enemies, which actually, I don't know if I like it or not, because it makes everything way more dangerous. Because the old enemies, really the only kind of enemies you'd see for most of the game, these little kind of semi-zombie dudes, they weren't very dangerous. They were they were slow-ish, and you could easily outmaneuver them, and you could outrange them with a spear or whatever, and it was fine. But now they've added faster enemies and ranged enemies. So going into caves in the early game has become much more dangerous. But I think that might be okay, because I think it might slightly push you more to use the early game types of armor rather than trying to skip immediately to like chainmail.
Right, okay.
Because, well, I mean, I mentioned before there's this problem where the earliest type of armor you can get, the makeshift armor that's just basically made out of wood, or just wood rather than the proper wood armor. But like the makeshift armor only covers your body, and there's not a version for your head or legs.
Right.
And because of the way the attacks hit specific zones on your body, it means that like 66% of the time you're basically not wearing any armor because of the way the hit spread works. But like the earliest tiers of armor, one of which is like proper wood armor, and then there's like very simple metal armors that you can make out of copper. normally you just skip straight past them and jump straight to, well, either like tailored linen armor or like actual chainmail. Often you'd skip straight to like iron chainmail even. Like you wouldn't even bother with any of the copper or bronze versions because it just wasn't worth the time to make that if you were going to spend the same amount of time making it out of iron.
Right.
But now with all these extra enemies, I feel like it does slightly pressure you towards using some of those earlier game armors.
Yeah, because I guess you won't be safe trying to do your
to
foraging.
go and get the metals that you need for the more advanced armors.
Yeah, it sounds like a problem they'd want to solve.
Yeah. But I'm not sure the balance is quite right. Like, it does make going into caves at all in the early game extremely dangerous. And also not related to how dangerous the caves usually are, but for this save specifically, I turned on the like experiment. Well, I guess it's not really an experimental feature, but it's off by default. I turned on actual cave-ins.
Oh,
because it normally uses physics on sand and gravel and dirt. Well, defaults to sand and gravel, but you can turn it on for dirt. So if it's unstable, it will start sliding down the hill or whatever.
Huh.
And if it overhangs, if you jump on it, it suddenly collapses or whatever.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
But then in the second tier of that, you can turn on the option for cave-ins where actual rock becomes unstable as well. So if you're in a cave, and if you like hit the ceiling at all, it all collapses, or not all of it, like a limit, in a more realistic way.
Some amount around it.
Yeah. But then that means you actually have to like make wooden support beams to like reinforce the caves as you're mining through them. It seems like
that's kind of neat.
It's kind of generous in that like it seems to be based on basically how far away the walls are. So like if you're mining only like a 2 or 3 block wide corridor, then it's fine.
You might be okay. Yeah.
But then once you start opening that up a bit more, you can start putting in support columns to hold it up, which is pretty cool. But like, again, more inconvenience and more like you're spending a whole bunch of extra wood making all these extra support beams and whatnot. So I don't know about the balance of it, but that's kind of what that game is. It's all about realism, I guess. So realistic systems that are sometimes just there to be inconvenient, but that's kind of the balance of it, to make you spend the resources. So yeah, that was Vintage Story. I went back to that for a while by myself. No multiplayer this time.
The true experience.
Well, kind of. I was like, I keep thinking like it would be really cool to play Vintage Story, not even just in like one other person multiplayer, but like with other people entirely. But I think there's like the scaling on that would quickly get out of control. Because I talked about when I was playing with one other person, it was like division of labour. I was doing all the farming and they were doing all the metalwork, basically. It's like that's fine, but I think once you start adding more people to that number, it will quickly get past the point where it's reasonable. Like I feel like 3 or 4 people would probably be the maximum that would make sense with the way it's balanced at the moment. But then you see videos of Vintage Story where they're playing on servers with like 20 people, and it's just like they immediately jump straight to iron because everyone can just get everything immediately. Right. There's no hunting around for resources because you've got 20 people who can walk in 20 different directions and they can just find everything immediately.
There it is. We're good. And maybe caves aren't so bad because you can just send a horde of you.
Yeah, you can just run a bunch of people in there and hit the enemies with whatever you've got. So yeah, I think it would be cool to play multiplayer Vintage Story, but not maybe on a server tier of Vintage Story.
Right.
Don't go up as far as 20 people. Keep it to like 4. True co-op. Yeah. Just like every other cave game.
Cave game. You mean like Deep Rock? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah,
I played a small amount of that. A small amount of Rocket League.
The usual.
Yep, the usual. That's it.
There needs to be another game with rock in the title, so you can complete the Rock trilogy.
Well, it's like, well, how has there not been an indie game crossover? Well, not really indie games any longer, but indie game crossover between Rocket League and Rock and Stone.
Deep Rocket Galactic.
Yeah, Deep Rocket Galactic.
Deep Rocket League.
Put a beard on that car somehow.
Or at least the pickaxe on a spring.
Well,
or
sure, yes. It makes much more sense to just put a loot bug on the roof.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, that was it.
What have you been playing, Rob?
Boy, okay, where do I actually begin with this?
Have you done several things?
I've done several things, yeah. tiny, not as much Starlink this week, so I won't really talk about it. I'm still just plodding my way through it. I'm at the point. Well, okay, I'm kind of at the point in that game where it's kind of just sort of said, here's the flow of the game, which it had already explained to me before, but now it's like, just go do it. Like, I think the main story has almost ended at this point.
Right, this is like the pre-final battle where it's just like, just go around the world and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but I think this is actually the most of the game now, at this point. It's like, go to each planet, get your alliance level up on each planet, destroy the extractor towers, which is what you're doing most of the game. Then go destroy the prime creatures, which feed off the extractor towers. Then go destroy the dreadnoughts in space once you've destroyed the primes on each connected planet. So it makes the dreadnought fight easier. Do that for the 3 sectors in the game, and I'm still working on the first one. And I think I can tell that's where the main campaign basically finishes and stops guiding me through it, because you can go to like the database and it has like one of those sections for like so you can replay the videos of the cutscenes and things like that.
Right.
And I've got like all but 2 of them now, and it's
like the memories in Zelda where you're just like, I have nearly all of these.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
but I've still got so much world to explore.
Yeah, exactly. I've done the bulk of the main quest, like, or you've basically used that to guide me through the tutorial, I guess, and it's like now just go do it.
Does it also lose all the Star Fox at that point?
No, so I haven't actually like the Star Fox is counted separately, and I still haven't actually. I think I did a tiny bit more Star Fox content, but I think that, as I say, I think it's all pretty limited. And the next bit of Star Fox content is on a planet I've not been to yet. In like halfway through the planet tree, I suppose, halfway through the planet difficulty levels. So I think it'll be a while till I actually go back there. If I'm working through this sequentially. What I have done is started playing with a second pilot as well as Fox, because now I'm kind of in the grind, I suppose. Like, playing as Fox isn't necessarily as essential. And I did that whole pilot level, the thing I couldn't quite figure out last time about the leveling, the difficulty levels. Yeah. Like, I do think that the spikes in the curve is a bit weird, but yeah, it's pilot level. Pilot level is the important thing to worry about. Like, so if you're when I started using a new pilot just to see what their thing is, like, oh, right, yeah, I'm getting absolutely hammered now. So I had, conveniently, I went, as I say, because of this campaign structure, I've been back in some of the lower level areas and could start flying as this other guy. I went with Eli, who's like an old gunslinger type. So he's got this cool, like, Western drawl all the time, and so he's quite fun, and he's quite nice to just be, if you know what I mean. Not as cool, not anywhere near as cool as Fox, but it's nice to have a secondary thing to work on. But yeah, it keeps all of the leveling separate between pilots. Now I don't know if that's like a co-op game decision or something like that. So you could pick a pilot and stick to them, and then level that up separately or something like that. Or it's just a way of like, boy, Marzi's being loud in the background. That's probably going to pick up on the final recording. Yeah, or if that's just a way of extending, like, you play the whole game again if you want. You're going to have to, probably, if you want to level up the character through the levels and get them up. And all they really do is give you a slightly different ability tree that you can work through. So, they will perhaps benefit by a certain playstyle compared to other playstyles, potentially. But I've noticed there are some abilities in Pilot's ability trees that appear to be give everyone this bonus.
Right. So you can, if you level up everyone gets stronger.
Yeah. And that is kind of the plot of the game to a certain extent.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it also ties directly into that, let's make money off buying things. Yeah, there is all that to it, but I'm still having a good time of it. I should point out I'm not done with it yet. I just haven't played as much of it in the last couple of weeks, because of all this other stuff I'm about to talk about. I took a bit of a detour into PlayStation 1 land because we talked about radical bikers before, right? And it's like I found out there was a PlayStation 1 version of that thing. I don't know if did we talk about that on the podcast yet? I think I teased you with it about it's the one that has a song about being the pizza man.
Yeah.
It's a weird, a pretty basic arcade game, but like kind of fun in its own little way. Yeah, they made a PlayStation 1 version of that game that apparently appears to not really add anything over the arcade game. There's like a radical mode, they call it, which basically just forces you to... Well, it doesn't even force you. Like, every level there's like a pizza topping on the route you're taking, and I think you're supposed to get all of them on the route, but I haven't quite figured out what happens if you don't. It appears to be absolutely fine. And you can earn cash from your runs and use that to upgrade your bike. Like, I think maybe that's the thing, like earn more cash by getting all the pizza toppings in a particular set of runs, and then use that to upgrade your bike for the next mission and make that a little bit easier. But it's basically just the arcade game again. I don't think they added anything in this PlayStation 1 version over the arcade, as far as I can tell.
Right.
And obviously it looks much worse. So there's that. Also in PlayStation 1 land, I got the gun out again to try something I've never played before. But thought this, it's been an intrigue of mine for a while, and that's Elemental Gearbolt. So this is a light gun game that was published by Sony themselves. I can't remember the developer, but it's not an internal Sony team, but Sony published it at least. That is trying to be a sort of RPG light gun game cross. So you can, like, depending on how well you do for a stage, at the end of the stage, you can choose to either claim your claim score as either bonus or XP, and XP will level up your weaponry. Basically, your life bar the life bar maximum will increase as you level up, and so will like the size of the hitbox of your shots.
What, making it easier?
Theoretically, yeah. It's still bloody difficult, as it turns out.
Why would you choose bonus over level?
Well, if you were going for a score run, I guess, because it's still a light gun game, right? It's still.
So if you're super badass, you don't level up at all, and you get
just turn all your XP to points.
Right.
So yeah, that's the balance of this game, and I think it's got a pretty ridiculous presentation to it. So like the actual game is one of the few PlayStation 1 games that runs at a true 60 FPS. So that looks nice straight off the bat. The art style is pretty cool. Like so almost all of the bad guys and almost all of the things you're shooting they're not polygonal. They are like sprites in the world, and they look nice. They're like well drawn fantasy art. It's sort of a sci-fantasy world, a little bit Panzer Dragoon-y in some ways, that sort of vibe. But everything is sprites and stuff in the world, so it looks, it's a good look. It works well. It's got a fully orchestrated score that sounds lovely. Like it's really good, and surprising. I was like, oh, what? No! This isn't faked in any way. They actually got an orchestra in to do this on a PS1 game. Jeez, it's got like anime cutscenes in between the levels that are quite good quality. Aside from, I should point out that this was, oh god, it's just annoying. I've had this on the tip of my tongue. I've had this sort of prepped in my head for like the last almost 2 weeks, and now I can't remember. There was a localization team that did an awful lot of Japanese to English localizations back then. Visual Concepts or something. Oh god, I'm gonna have to look it up again now. I've forgotten who it is, but anyway, they did a bunch of them, and they are kind of well known for kind of screwing them up.
Oh no!
In some ways, or like making changes to games that along the way
in the in the spirit of the original.
So one of the things they changed in this game, and this is one of their hallmarks, is make it harder. So the game sort of splits itself up into a training mode, but the training mode is easy, but it only lets you play the first half of the game. So it's like, okay, fine, I got through that. That wasn't too bad. Let's put it on normal mode. Oh, this is so much harder. and they made it like by their own admission in the manual. Apparently, they made this game 50% harder than the Japanese original, and it shows because I think you get to about level 4 or out of the 6 or 7 levels there are, and it's damn near impossible in normal mode. And there's a difficulty level higher than that. There's just, I should point out, like, so one of the unique elements of this game, especially for the time, is that you're not limited to a single weapon. You have 3 weapons in your arsenal, of which 2 of them to me seem utterly pointless. But we'll get past that in a second. Okay. Your main shot is like basically a regular accurate shot, but instead of having ammunition, you kind of have a limited fire rate. So part of the skill of the game is actually pacing your shots to be as fast as possible without overdoing it. If you overdo it, instead of a shot happening, you just get a flash and an alternative noise, like your weapon isn't ready yet. So there's a discipline required to doing well. And that's kind of until you get to level 4, where there are just sections of that game where there is so much on screen that I don't know how you deal with it. So doing a bit of save state scumming so I could just repeat sections over and over again. I'm doing this on my Steam Deck, like fully emulated. So it was, save states available to me. And I tried, so the other weapons you have are a lightning shot that like fills the screen a bit like a shotgun, but apparently has very close range. And is supposed to be able to, take out multiple targets at once. So I thought, great, I'll use that against when the screen gets absolutely flooded with things I need to shoot. The problem is with that shot does apparently next to no damage to things. So its ability to actually kill anything on screen in the pinch moments is next to nothing. I found it completely useless. Same for the third weapon, which is like a water cannon. So it has rapid fire essentially. But again, it does so little damage to things you hit that your ability to take out targets quickly with it is next to impossible. Now, I don't know if that's a localization difficulty thing they changed, like they just messed up the weapon balance. But yeah, I found those 2 other tools completely useless, and they feel like what they should, level 4 is what they should be used for. Some of those high intensity moments, and it just doesn't work. So, having bashed my head against it for a while, I kind of found a way to just survive. I couldn't not take damage. That seemed impossible. Yeah. But just finding a way to scrape by and pick up enough health refills on the way, knowing where those health refills are and when they were going to appear so you could precisely hit them, because some of them are really difficult. Also, I can't believe some of the targets are so far away that if you weren't playing emulated, they would probably look like a single pixel. I was playing at an up-res, in a heightened resolution, so I could actually see. But even then, they are incredibly tiny.
Yeah.
How would you ever find them? It's a and that can't be a localization problem. That has to have been.
No.
Yeah. So it's a weird thing. The other thing I'd say about and this is another thing that I think is I'm still looking for that working designs. There you go. That's the localization team. Another
name. I can see why it's hard to remember.
Yeah, another thing of theirs that's very common is they did a bunch of games with these cutscenes and stuff like that, and obviously it's dubbed here. They've dubbed English over it, but oh boy, the voices are bad. The actual quality of the anime is fine, but the voice work that they choose to do over the top is incredibly poor.
Oof,
it's just they just got some guy from The Office to read the lead character's lines in the most deadpan voice imaginable. It's atrocious. It's probably worse than the Dr. Wily one is the classic, right?
Oh yeah.
The from the PlayStation 1 Mega Man games, that's pretty appalling as well. It's sort of it's on that level, if not worse. Not even in a funny way, just bad.
It's a shame after you put the effort into making nice.
Yeah, it is a real shame because
put some bad voices
because I really think the game is good. Like level 4 difficulty spike aside, and the rest of the game never gets that difficult again. I should point out, like it's like that is very much the hardest part of the game. Like it's quite a nice, quite well presented, fun shooter. Like I had a really good time with it. I did eventually beat it once I managed to get past level 4. The rest of the game was kind of a cakewalk after dealing with that. But yeah, it's a really nicely presented, clearly effort went into it project, and it's had a pants localization. Like I'm tempted to actually try and like just get hold of the Japanese copy, like just download and try and play that and see what it's like. You're not going to miss much by playing the Japanese version because, you know, it's an anime game of that era. It is incomprehensible, even in English. Like most of the story is in the manual, so you have to read it there if you're even remotely interested in what's going on, which kind of undercuts everything that's happening in the like anime scenes because it just doesn't make sense without the context of what's happening. I won't try and explain it here. I've probably forgotten most of it already. I did look it up afterwards and then it sort of came together, but it's not really in the game, which is also a problem. But yeah, well, what a weird and interesting thing. They did a game prior to this as well that's also a light gun game that is also on this Balastorio image I have of light gun games, so I will probably try and get hold of that. And I think I did try and have a look at trying to get hold of a real copy of this at some point, but it's a bit expensive. It's one of those. So yeah, Elemental Gearbolt. Fun thing. Slightly ruined by localization team. So there's that. What else is worth talking about? I mean, I started playing the Master System version of Sonic the Hedgehog for some reason. Like someone reminded me of those games, and I was like, yeah, it's been because I used to be really good at the Game Gear version of Sonic 1, right? Like I was like,
my question is like, what's the difference between the Master System and the Game Gear?
None. Slight cropping, basically, is the answer to that. The Master System version has more of the world on screen at the same time, but the game is identical. And
it's like Sonic Chaos exclusive to the Game Gear. That's not on the Master System, is it?
Oh, I don't know, actually. You might be right.
I know. It is available for both. Okay, it's available for both.
Okay, yeah. I guess obviously I played this to death because it was like, for a long time, it was the only Sonic game I had as a kid, and I was that Sonic obsessed kid that didn't have a Mega Drive, right? So it was like, oh, I'm going to play the absolute crap out of this, and not to toot my own horn, I got pretty good at it, and I was. I used to play it not for speed runs. I used to play it for score runs because that was a thing. Because at the end of the game, it would actually total up the score, and. So it was for me. It was almost a life run because at the end of the game, the more lives you had, those really did add up to score pretty quick. I mean, I guess if you speed run the levels, like actually the time bonus is probably going to work out more in your favor because you got an absurd bonus if you manage to finish a level under 30 seconds, which I think is only really possible on the first level. But
right, yeah.
But yeah, it was worth trying to get for. Anyway, I'm not nearly as good at that game as I once was, as it turns out. After about 30 years of not playing it,
I'm just like, you played some Sonic Mania in the intervening years.
Sure, yeah. But and also like it's harder to forgive just how old that is, like, and the hardware it was running on. Like,
there's old and then there's old.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that sort of. I don't know that Master System holds up as well as NES, in terms of retro. Even though it's very similar technology, very similar capabilities, there's something about the NES that holds up a little better. So yeah, I haven't finished my run through that, so I'll talk more a little bit about that next time. Anyway, weird little nostalgia trip. The other thing that's been basically taken over a little bit of what I've been playing is Balatro, Game of the Year nomination and winner of some TGAs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've become one of those people. Balatro is real good. Should go without saying at this point, I suppose. Everyone knows it. And if you don't know it, it's roguelike poker, where you bend the rules as you go, basically. It's kind of poker. Like, it works by you score chips based on the value of the card, the rank of the card you're playing in. Depending on the hand you play, you get like a sort of starting point. Like, this hand is worth this many chips. But also there's a multiplier involved. So this hand is involved, it like starts at this many chips with this multiplier attached to it. And the game is basically about building and modifying your deck and jokers and all kinds of other stuff and leveling up the value of the base hands in order to get your score per hand ever higher in order to beat increasing score targets. And that is kind of it. That is the game. But like there are... I mean, obviously there's more, like the layers on top of it are pretty extensive. Like cards can be upgraded. You can, in every way you could possibly think of. Like, so, I can take my deck and I can start changing the suit. So like, I don't like these hearts. Get out of here. I want more clubs. Give me more clubs. So there are ways to start converting your deck to clubs if you want to go for flushes, for instance. Or, there's ways of actually just straight up deleting cards from your deck. Like, get out of here, 2. Don't like you. Get out.
No more 2s.
No more 2s. Get rid of them. Or ranking up cards. That's another way to get rid of your 2s, I suppose. Turn them into 3s. And start pushing them around. You can enhance cards so they too add extra multiplier to the board, or that they provide extra chips, or that there's a 1 in 4 chance of them adding a 20 multiplier to, or giving you cash, because you need to figure out how to get a good cash flow going in this game as well, because it's a roguelike. You need to have cash that you can spend in a shop after each round, so you can potentially upgrade your deck and do all these modifications. There's quite a lot going on, and I think while the game is good, and while it is deep, and while it is quite, it is, I would say, relatively easy to get sucked in to how it functions. Like it only does, your first run is basically a tutorial, but even that like stops halfway through the run. And that's it. The game then from that moment on leaves you alone. It's like, that's it. That's all you need to know. Go for it. Which is kind of nice. But I don't think it didn't get its hooks in me quite as quickly as I think it did for, like, as it seems, everyone else on the planet. Right? It took a couple of runs for me to get it. I was kind of thinking after like 2 runs through the game that it's like, why is everyone so enamored with this? Why is this game of the year? I don't see it like, because it felt like I was being like just ended by random, right? And that can still happen. It's a roguelike and it's a card game. It's going to screw you occasionally. But the more time you put into it, the more you can see what works and what doesn't for you. There are certain styles of play that I think are more effective than others. I think going for anything flush run or anything suit run feels way more difficult than going for straights, for instance. I love playing straights. Straights seem to be my like go-to in terms of getting a good run out of it. So like ultimate combo like so far for me has been there's a joker you can have in the bank, like jokers are like one of the modifiers that can make you play straights, but you can leave gaps in the straight. So I could play 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, for instance. I don't need, or I could play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. No, I wouldn't have. That would be a 6-card hand. But you know what I mean. Like I could do then 1 doesn't exist. All of that was wrong. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, right? That would be allowed as well. I can leave any number of gaps in the straight. So that makes playing straights super easy, or much easier. Then there's a card that reduces the amount of cards you need in a straight or a flush to just 4 instead of 5. So suddenly they become really easy to play. And then you combine that with knowing you're gunning to that strategy, you can level up the value of the straight. So the base score you get for a straight, the number of chips and the starting multiplier starts to increase. And like, so if you focus in on a strategy like that, and yes, that has to have been a strategy presented to you by the random, right? You have to have done a run where these options come up to you. You can see how it starts combining, and you can see how it starts all linking together to how you can get some ludicrous scores in a single hand. But then that becomes your weakness as well, because if you can't do that, you're boned. And every now and then, that's where the random works against you. Sometimes
I see. So you've kind of set it up in such a way that you have to win in a certain way because of all your bonuses.
Exactly. Yeah. My deck is skewed this way, and I'm trying my hardest to skew it more and more in that direction. But it's not going to. It's not so easy to turn your entire deck to that strategy.
Right.
You have to do it gradually, and that might screw you up. Because you've also got the boss blinds, as they call them, to deal with, which add an extra negative multiplier on a particular round. So you'll have a high score target to hit on the boss rounds, but you'll also have something working against you, like, you're not allowed to discard anything from your hand. You have a limited number of discards you can have per round instead of playing a hand. And one of the bosses will just take that tool away from you. One of the bosses will force you into only playing a single type of hand for that round. So if you're gunning for straights, you better make sure that that's the hand you can play with a particular hand. Otherwise, the game will not allow you to play it. You can play it, you just won't score anything. And that's like, there are some of those can be absolute killers to your run. Like, I've done a pretty good job in speccing my deck towards diamonds, and then a boss comes up saying all diamonds are debuffed, which means they score nothing. And you're like, well, now I'm screwed.
Now I'm boned. Okay.
But if you're lucky enough to have unlocked the ability to re-roll the boss, then you can change that for a cost. And it's balancing all that out. You kind of can't just do just one thing. You kind of do have to do everything as much as you possibly can. And in order to do that, money is your friend. And basically, play the economy. Play the economy seems to be my strategy at the moment. Anyway, I've put like 12 hours into this in a week. And I've only won 2 of my runs so far. And by winning, that means get through to stage 8 of what is potentially an endless series of stuff. There is an achievement for going much further than that, which I don't think I'll ever hit, because past that point, the rate at which it gets harder is ridiculous. I don't know. And you get multiple decks you can start with, and the decks have an advantage at the very start of the game. I've done red and blue. There's yellow, and then which gives you extra hands and discards. But I'm on yellow, which gives you extra starting money, which I thought would be easier, but I haven't won a yellow round yet. There's also, at some point, I'm going to unlock difficulty levels so I can make it even harder for myself. There's targets you have to meet in order to unlock more and more of the random. So the extra jokers, and there's 150 different jokers to acquire and unlock. Some of them you have to meet certain targets in order for them to ever appear. But because there's so many of them, you might just not be. Yeah, I'm sure there's loads I've just never seen still at this point. It's pretty good. Great thing to play when you're not feeling super hot as well. So I played a bunch of it yesterday after TGA.
Ideal. Yeah.
What I will say is a pretty I think it's a pretty big complaint for me anyway. hasn't been too big an issue, but it does get annoying sometimes. There's basically only one music track in this game. And it sort of fades between different variants of it. When you go to the shop, it fades in a different version. When you're in a hand, there's a slightly different version. When you're playing the boss round, there's a slightly different variant of it. But it's just the one theme playing endlessly. Like, it doesn't even stop when your run ends. Okay, it pitches down a bit when your run ends, but like, you go back to the main menu, it's that song. You start a run, it's that song. And while it's a pretty good song, I'm not going to take that away from it. Like, it stops me from playing really, really long sessions of it. Because it's like, I'd be quite tempted to just keep going sometimes, but then my brain like locks on to that same set of chords, and I'm like, yeah, I'm finding that pretty annoying now. It could really do with more music.
Bit of variety required.
Yeah. Like, it may be just a different theme at the end of a round, or like as you're getting close to actually winning a run, maybe the last fight should have some sort of like boss music or something. I don't know. Or just maybe keep the structure the same, so it's like the song for the run, right? But then just have multiple songs for like, this run I've got a different tune. Like, to a certain extent, Vampire Survivors has the same problem, but like Vampire Survivors has a fuck ton of music, but you've got to listen to that one track which can sometimes be quite a short loop for your entire run. Yeah, which is like half an hour in Vampire Survivors, but you're like, that's quite a long time sometimes to listen to a short loop.
I mean, it sounds like in Balatro's case, it'd be an ideal one to just mute the music and go on, find the YouTube soundtrack and just run that forever.
100% could, and I've been tempted to do that. Like, so far I've coped, and I don't know why. Maybe there's just something like totally meditative about it past a certain point, but like, it's designed to just get in my head. But
I can see why this has been such a success, though.
Yeah, it's easy to understand, and I mean, probably God help you if you've got the mobile version, then I guess you'd never put it down. There is a mobile version. Yeah, it plays. I'm obviously doing it on the Steam Deck. It works well there. I think I prefer playing it with controller, though, even though it's got good touchscreen support that presumably they pulled in from doing the mobile version. I say it's one guy. There are some drawbacks. I like when you're like using the D-pad to move around the cards. Like, when you hover over them with the D-pad, it always tells you like what that card is about. But weirdly, if you just tap that card with the touchscreen controls, you don't get that pop-up. And it's like, well, why? That pop-up seems like super critical to me understanding how this works. I haven't actually tried thinking about it, but I bet it's like a press and hold or something to get that up. But like, that's just not as convenient as just like tapping it. It's just easier to just crosshair over it, and then that information is right there. Weird. Yeah, there are certain... Oh, man. There's like mechanics of like things you have to hold in your hand but not play. There's mechanics for discarding stuff, like that when special effects happen. There's the one thing I wish it was better at would be explaining the order in which some effects are applied, because I kind of thought it was like there's definitely phases to how the scoring works. Like, it will run through the cards that you play first, but then some jokers will apply during that phase. And then it will run through, like, I think, play stuff in hand and run through effects that are to do with stuff still in your hand, if you've got those in play. And then I think it runs through the remaining Joker effects. And I think all of those run left to right, but sometimes they don't run left to right. So I like, it feels like sometimes like there's a purpose in you ordering your hand. Like, so say for instance, you get some stuff that's like adds to multiplier, like a +4. But then you get some effects that are a multiply, and they happen in sequence, if that makes sense. You kind of want your multiplies to happen as late as possible. Do you see what I mean? Like, order of precedence in maths, right? You want to go back to maths.
Yeah.
You want all your pluses to happen first, and then all your multiplies to happen last.
Yeah, sure.
To get the most effect. So you try and rearrange your hand to do that, but you can't always rearrange your jokers to do that either, even though it looks like they should be playing. Yeah, I haven't got a handle on that yet. And I think maybe some explanation of how that functions or some way of pulling up. Well, here's how your current setup works would be kind of nice. But other than music and that little detail, it's a pretty good game.
What would you want it to like step through what it's doing at each step? Or
yeah, kinda, and be like, or have like a Magic the Gathering very clear,
right?
Kind of like I'm going to do this now. I'm going to do this. Or
because obviously that gets extremely nuanced with.
Yeah, some way of just pulling up like a little just a number next to things. Maybe a little bit like what's it called? Into the Breach or something, where it's just like this is going to play out in this order. That would be extraordinarily helpful.
That is a good way of handling it in Into the Breach, isn't it?
Yeah. Just something like that. That would be really neat. Because as I say, there's just certain mechanics there that even after 12 hours or whatever, I don't feel like I've got a handle on. It's pretty addictive. Anyway, I think that's me done. I can't really think what else I've got to talk about.
Balatro. Pure Pazak.
For what now?
It's a callback to that stupid Knights of the Old Republic 2 video. The card game, that dumb card game in KOTOR, which is like blackjack, but space blackjack, where you can like change the cards to get you to 20 or whatever, with like wild cards and stuff that you can buy, which make it totally unfair.
Nice. Pazak. I've forgotten that's what it was called.
Well, I think the card game in Star Wars, the Star Wars, like
Star Wars, the Star Wars.
The Star Wars timeline. The Skywalker, when that guy was alive, is called Sabak, right? Isn't it, or something? But then, because KOTOR is in the past, they called it Pazak. So it's slightly different.
Is it the same game, or is it?
No, I think it's supposed to be different. But I don't know what Sabak is supposed to be in Star Wars, the Star Wars. But Pazak is actually playable and very simple game in KOTOR. So it's not quite on the level of a kind of Final Fantasy game, card game, let alone a Balatro kind of level.
Or Gwent.
Or Gwent, yeah, indeed. It's not quite on a Gwent level.
Get Gwent.
Yeah, get yourself Gwented.
They did release that as a standalone game at one point, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, what have I been playing? Bit of Wipeout.
Hey, you did play a mega after you said on the video.
After I said I did, and it was a good time. But yeah, you can't really beat the...
on the video you probably haven't watched yet. I think you said it during the Aero video, which is up on the site today.
Probably. I was like, what if I combine Charlie XCX with Wipeout?
Yeah.
It was pretty good, but you can't go wrong with the classic Wipeout playlists, some of which are available on Spotify.
It's good. Yeah, it's good trying to build like compilation playlists on Spotify and then bringing them all in. I do specifically have a 4 Wipeout playlist on Spotify now.
Yes, you need a 4 Wipeout. You can add Von Dutch into there, 360 into there, but would slot in nicely.
Move.
Yeah, and just playing a little bit more Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, really?
Pretty good. I don't know if you saw that Donkey did a video being like, hey, this game's still pretty good the other day.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, but complete with the occasional jank, which of course still happens. But it is weird how 2018, right? We're talking 6-year-old game. It just looks amazing. I'm take it Grand Theft Auto 6 won most anticipated game. I mean, was there any competition there?
Well, it's such a stupid category anyway.
Yeah, really stupid. Yeah. Think that game will actually come out next year? Very hard to tell.
I think it's a risk putting it on your fantasy team.
Oh no.
It's like it's this year's Silk Song, right? Like,
yeah.
Because we still haven't heard anything about that.
No, I mean, if that surprise comes out,
even Yacht Club Games turned up to give an award at the Game Awards and didn't talk about anything to do with Mine of the Hollower. God damn it!
Oh dear.
I have been, there is no possible way of coming back from my earlier mistakes in the fantasy
I don't know.
league.
Me and you are neck and neck, aren't we, Rob? I think.
No, I've got too much.
Thanks.
I got too many problems with my lack of counter pick to make up for at this point. It's
Oh, I see. You really screwed the cat's this year.
I screwed the pooch early and couldn't recover.
We'll let you listeners know the results of our fantasy league gaming picks in the new year. So that's us.
I should have even counter-picked Anton last, damn it. That worked out like that. I ended up losing 2 more points than if I didn't even counter-pick it. God damn it.
I know. Sad times. That's a podcast, though. So thank you for joining us. We also do videos, so you can check those out on our YouTube channel, Happy Salad.
Unfortunately, we don't have the 4th episode of Satisfactory because it turns out I didn't record game audio for that one, so...
Oh no!
Video may be
3
lost.
Whole episodes. That's a shame. Was that getting you to a specific point? Wasn't it?
Well, I was kind of spacing it over each time I completed one of the space elevator stages, so that one would have been the 3rd space elevator stage. But I may still make another video for Satisfactory. It will just be like a redo, but with my current factory progress. It's not really substantially different in terms of the video content, really. But we'll see about that.
Well, you could at least enjoy the first 3 parts of Satisfactory 1.0, part 1, 2, 3. Yes, we have starting fresh. We have coal powering up. And we have well oil.
Well,
for those who are well oiled. And speaking of well oiled, we have a preview video of Aero 2 coming up. So, which look very slick.
I should talk about that as well. Actually, I've been playing some Aero 2.
There you go.
What I will say is, I like that game. I don't like it as much as Aero 1. I've decided.
Yeah, is it finished?
Yes, it released on Steam since we recorded the video properly. So I'm allowed to talk about it now. Cool. I don't quite like it as much as Aero 1. I think the new shooting mechanics or the new requirement, the new combat is harder and not as visibly readable as it once was.
Slightly overcomplicated it a bit.
Yeah, a little. The secret shots do still exist that I was talking about in the video. Like, I will talk about, they don't appear to be here. They are, but they're only in single player. And also, the Steam Deck performance is quite poor.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it's really surprising, because it's not... I mean, the sparks and the lighting look nice, but the rest of the world is intentionally kind of low poly. That's kind of the look, right? I don't know why. Like, my experience on the Steam Deck has been not good. Even though Monster Cat have a giveaway to win a Steam Deck for the launch of Aero 2, so that's ironic. I have since installed Aero 1, and I haven't played it yet, but on the Steam Deck, and so I'll see if that's a new problem compared to
back.
Yeah,
see. We may be recommending the original there.
But I'm still. That sounds harsh. I mean, I am still enjoying it. My opinion, I still like it quite a bit. It is still fun. And I'm, me, I'm into that music. This game is a bit of me all over. But it's hard not to be a little disappointed when you have that feeling that the original was better.
It's like Audio Surf 2.
Yeah,
the original was better.
Similar vibe. Yeah.
Anyway. On that note,
go watch the video. Anyway.
Watch the video and you'll see.
It's got the co-op and the 2-player stuff, which is all new, and so that's all good. So it's fine.
Yeah, make good choices.
The co-op stuff, the 2-player stuff are good additions. Can't complain there.
And if you like rhythm action, we've also got a video of Rift of the Necrodancer demo as well recently too to check out because that's looking pretty cool. And I think that's it. We'll catch you next time for another Saladcast.
Whoop, whoop.
Goodbye.
Are we going to squeeze one in this year? Yeah, maybe just. It'll be after Christmas at this point.
We'll see if we can squeeze.
A New Year's special.
Oh, yeah.